They're giving me next week off and then back at Thanksgiving.
And that's where they want to go. Right there.
If I remember to do this. You were able to start the tape. All right.
Oh my God, you guys.
Is Jeff showing up?
There's someone, I don't know.
It's a minute before.
now?
You orchestrated that, really. Yeah. When's the transition to January 1st? Start January 1st.
Yeah.
You know, let all the criminals out of jail. You know what else we did?
I'm looking forward to the cases that I've got.
Jeff maybe think that we're just going pointing it.
I got it right on the button.
Yeah, you too, yes. I wore a watch tonight, so. I'll call the Tremont Planning Board meeting of Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 to order at 6 p.m. Roll call, we have Lawson Wilson, Brett Witham, Beth Gott, myself, Mark Good, and we're not sure about Jeff, right? He didn't say that he's not going to be here. So.
Did he pick up his packet? No?
He didn't pick up his packet? Does he think just pointy heads on the agenda? Who knows, yeah. I'm asking you questions that you don't know. So,
I would assume that he believed that it was just pointy head and it wasn't worthwhile for him to show up, and that's what I would think if I were him as well.
okay. Even though you got the agenda and it has all this stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to excuse Jeff.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second on the table to excuse Jeff Young. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Or nothing, okay. I don't think we need to adjust the agenda. Minutes of regular planning board meeting, October 11th. Now, it's my understanding that you guys didn't have a quorum of people who, voting quorum
That's right.
here last time, so now that Beth and I are back, they look fine to me. So if anybody,
I think this is the one where I think on page 8, the access into the site category for the pointy head application, the pointy head findings of fact. I think, Mark, that you made the motion.
I did.
And
That's correct.
Right. And I don't remember who seconded it, but I think it was Beth. Page 8, maybe there are 2 pages.
Yeah. C, access to the
See
site.
access to the site.
Yeah.
And at October 25th, I rewatched the video to make sure that I checked. And
Well, wait, let's talk about this first, because I have a couple questions about the 25th, even though it wasn't here. So,
But on the 11th, right, on the 11th,
yeah.
I think that it was you and then Beth seconded it.
do you remember whether you made a second?
I did make a lot of seconds that night, so I could have.
If you didn't do it, it was not me.
Okay.
Right, I'm pretty sure it
So
was
Beth,
me.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think we should go with that.
I know I did.
we'll
Great.
go with that, but need a motion to
Yeah.
amend it
That's the only change that I saw.
Okay, can you make that as a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the October 11th minutes with the change in the Pointy Head findings of fact section, paragraph C, access in the site, to state that the motion was made by Mark Good and was seconded by Beth Gott.
Second.
Okay, motion second to table to approve the minutes of October 11th, is it?
Yes.
As amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, yep, unanimous, or 4-0.
Okay, that's
The other minutes, of course, I can't, well, of the 25th, of course, I have to abstain from this because I wasn't at the meeting, but I did see a couple things. Having watched the video yesterday.
Thank you.
I saw that you guys waived several of these things in the completeness review, and that that's not shown here in the minutes, first of all, and also you guys approved them with 5 conditions, essentially, that John's name was to go on the drawing, what zone, the catch basin and drainage course, underground electricity, and confirmation on the location of the septic. Is that what you guys remember? And it should reflect that, I believe, on the application deemed complete with these conditions.
Correct.
And one other thing, Beth somehow wasn't at the beginning of the meeting, but she was able to get back to make the motion to adjourn and set the next meeting. So that was pretty amazing, Beth. So somebody else did that, I guess.
Yep. I mean, I made the motion. I
thought
would
Jeff,
assume that Jeff
I
seconded
thought
it,
Jeff
maybe.
seconded it. when
And
I-
hold on, here's the other thing.
Yeah.
We don't have 3 people that were at that meeting to approve these,
Oh,
because Jeff's not here.
Jeff's not here.
So it's the same situation you guys find yourself in on the 11th.
Sweet. Okay. Right.
So take a motion to table it.
I'll make a motion to table the minutes from October 25th until the next meeting, in which there's a quorum of people who were there.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second to table the minutes for the October 25th meeting until Jeff Gunn could be here, or we have a quorum to approve them. Okay. Old business, Tremont Consolidated School, new portable classroom. And first, we're gonna open a public hearing at 6:08. Any comments on this? Questions? No? Seems easy.
Got a feeling.
Board members, are you okay? I had one question, Jandria, and it has nothing to do with the, our approval and anything in the ordinances, but how about the safety of the portable classroom as far as during lockdowns and that sort of thing?
So part of what we would be looking to do is to make sure that we're putting in different forms of communication, so making sure that we have, you know, phones that are out there, so that we have intercom to be able to communicate out there. They're not unusual for schools to have these. Would it be best case scenario for us to all be connected in the same building? For sure. But that's part of what we're working on with the planning committee to be able to talk about a possible addition, so.
Okay, I'm just,
You won't ever hear me say that the portable classroom is ideal for many reasons, but I think it is really necessary for other reasons.
thank you. Any comments, any other questions or whatever? Okay. We'll call the public hearing to close at 6:09. Okay, let's move on to site plan review. And you folks should remember that we need to have a motion and a reason for each of these, unlike with the completeness review. Now, first of all, I want to make sure that all the conditions that you guys approved this on have been met. I see John has taken a red marker, written his name on here and what it is.
Great.
We see the utility pole marks for the underground utility. It's got the classroom, it's got the drainage, we know the parking spaces. I don't see, what I don't see is, let me find it again. First of all, the zone that it's in. Was that somewhere else? You guys did ask for that.
Mm-hmm. Is it in the?
And the other thing was drainage course, and I don't remember who actually brought that up. I think it was you, Lawson. Does that satisfy what you were looking for? All I see is,
We've got topography on the, there's sort of topo lines on the site plan,
yeah,
which we didn't have 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. That to me gives me enough information to understand there's a relatively flat site, there is a drain there, there's not a lot of velocity from the flow coming off the roof of the classroom.
and
Yes,
I know Jeff was concerned about making sure that the classroom wasn't gonna go over the septic system, and
I think we're
we're okay.
outside the buffer zone.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay. So really, the only thing is noting what zone it's in.
Right, which, I don't know.
John, you have your red pen? Here, take this, write down what zone it's on. Sorry. Thank you, sir. It's in the harbor zone. Are we okay with that then? You think we can move on here?
Yes.
Okay. Brett, you satisfied, Beth? You satisfied?
Close enough.
Okay, Tremont site plan review, findings of fact. Tremont Consolidated School. Utilization of the site. The plan reflects the natural capabilities of the site. Development is being situated to preserve natural areas to the maximum extent possible. Excavation is limited in the development.
I'll make a motion that that the utilization of the site requirement has been met because there's minimal excavation, or movement for the temporary classroom, and that it fits on the site easily.
A second.
Motion and second on the table that the utilization of the site requirement has been met. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? We're not, adequacy of the road system. I'm not gonna read all this, so.
I will make a motion that the adequacy of the road system requirement has been met because the project will not increase traffic, because it does not increase students or staff.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the adequacy of the road system requirement has been met for stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, nothing. Access into site.
I'll make a motion that the access to the site requirement has been met because the access to the school is through the harbor zone, the access to the school is existing, and there's no change in use.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the access into the site requirement has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Nothing again. Access way location and spacing.
I'll make a motion that the access way location and spacing requirement has been met because the entrances and exits are located more than 50 feet from the closest intersection.
Second.
Keep me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
A motion and second on the table to find the access way, location, and spacing requirement has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, you were raising your hand.
Ready to vote.
Hearing none, all in favor?
There we go.
Okay. Internal vehicular circulation.
I'll make a motion that the internal vehicular circulation requirement has been met. The existing site provides safe movement throughout the site.
Second.
Motion and second to find the internal vehicular circulation condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Parking layout and design.
I'll make a motion that the parking layout and design requirement has been met because there are enough parking spaces for the use.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the parking layout and design condition has been met because there are enough parking spaces for the use. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Pedestrian circulation.
I'll make a motion that the pedestrian circulation requirement has been met because the pedestrian ways within the school complex are appropriate for the type and scale of this development.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find pedestrian circulation condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Stormwater management.
I'll make a motion that the stormwater management requirement has been met because drainage exists. There's the storm drain shown in the site plan.
Second.
Motion and second on the table that the stormwater condition, management condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. Erosion control.
I'll make a motion that the erosion control requirement has been met because there's minimal site, land movement and the existing topography minimizes erosion.
Second.
Motion and second on the table that the erosion control requirement has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Nothing. Water supply.
I'll make a motion that the water supply requirement is not applicable because there's no water in this temporary classroom building.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the water supply condition is not applicable because there's no water to the temporary classrooms. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Or nothing? Sewage disposal.
I'll make a motion that the sewage disposal requirement is not applicable because there is no plumbing in the temporary classrooms.
Second.
Motion and second on the table that the sewage disposal condition is not applicable because there's no plumbing in the temporary classrooms. All in favor? For nothing. Utilities.
I'll make a motion that the utility requirement has been met because underground power and communications will be installed from the existing pole on Marsh Road to connect to the temporary classrooms.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the utilities condition has been met because underground power is going to be installed from existing pole on the Marsh Road to the classrooms. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Or nothing. Natural features.
I'll make a motion that the natural features requirement has been met because there will be minimal tree removal and no extensive grading or filling proposed.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the natural features condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. Groundwater protection.
I'll make a motion that the groundwater protection requirement has been met because the placement of the temporary classroom structures on posts will not adversely impact quality or quantity of available water to abutting properties.
Second.
Motion and second on the table that the groundwater protection condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Nothing again. Water quality protection.
I'll make a motion that the water quality protection requirement has been met because there's no storage or discharge of materials that would contaminate groundwater, and it's not located within a watershed or a body of water most at risk from development.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find water quality protection condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 4-0. Hazardous, special, and radioactive materials.
I'll make a motion that the hazardous, special, and radioactive material requirement is not applicable because there's no storage of hazardous material on site.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find that the hazardous special and radioactive materials requirement is not applicable for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Nothing. Shoreland relationship.
I'll make a motion that the shoreline relationship requirement has been met because the development does not adversely affect the water quality of the shoreline of the adjacent harbor.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the shoreland relationship condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Or nothing? Technical and financial capacity.
I'll make a motion that the technical and financial capacity requirement has been met because the school has included the cost in the school budget.
Second.
Technical and financial capacity condition has been met, according to the motion made by Mr. Lawson Wilson, and for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. Solid waste disposal.
I'll make a motion that the solid waste disposal requirement has been met because the use of the temporary classroom does not affect the capacity of adequate disposal of solid waste.
Second.
Motion and second on the table, the solid waste disposal condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Historic and archaeological resources.
I'll make a motion that the historic and archaeological resources requirement has been met because, or is not applicable because no portion is identified as containing historic or archaeological resources.
Second.
Motion and second on the table, find historic and archaeological resources condition is not applicable for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Floodplain management.
I'll make a motion that the floodplain management requirement is not applicable because no portion of the project is located in the flood zone.
Second.
Motion second on the table to find that the floodplain management condition is not applicable because no portion of the project is located in the flood zone. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Nothing, okay. Okay, I guess we'll take a motion to approve the findings of fact for the Tremont Consolidated School.
I'll make a motion to approve the findings of fact for the site plan review for the Tremont Consolidated School.
Second.
Okay, motion second on the table to approve the findings of fact, site plan review findings of fact for the Tremont Consolidated School. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Or nothing? Okay. Now, John, we have to do the land use ordinance findings of fact next, right? This would be so much easier if we had a minor site plan review
Yeah.
for certain projects.
Yeah.
And it's something that we should discuss if we
Let's-
ever get any real time to deal with things like that. Preferably after June. Okay.
What happens in June, Mark? All right.
Performance standards. Buffering standards, the screened buildings or activities, land uses that could create nuisances to divert, block, or soften lights, to reduce noise, to preserve privacy, or to reduce smells and dust.
I'll make a motion that the buffering standards has been met because the use does not sort of change the school building. It's not a change in use. I don't know.
Or should it be not
Or
applicable?
not applicable because
John, what's your opinion on this?
Say it was that the installation of the classroom has no effect. They could create nuisances, divert waters of the lights, reduce noise, preserve privacy.
I
Yeah.
didn't quite get that.
I got a version of it. You can correct me if I go astray, but I'll make a motion that the buffering standards has been met because the temporary classroom does not create nuisances that need to be buffered.
Second.
we need to, approve each motion for this one? I believe we do, don't we, or just overall? You wouldn't,
Under site plan review, you didn't have to.
well, we do on site plan review. This is land use ordinance findings of fact.
Where's that written?
Huh?
Where's that written in site plan review? Of course.
It's just the way we've always done it, and have been advised to do. What, let's do a motion on each one.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So I made the motion.
We have a motion and second that, the buffering standards have been met because temporary classrooms don't create nuisances that require buffering. Is that
That's-
basically what you said?
No.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. Or nothing? Clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting.
I'll make a motion that the clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting requirement has been met because there's no clearing or removal.
I would say it's
Not,
I would say
it's
not
not, it's not
applicable,
applicable
yeah.
because there's no clearing or removal. But
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting is not applicable in this case. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, 4-0. Cluster development standards.
I'll make a motion that the cluster development standards is not applicable because this is not a cluster development.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the cluster development standards is not applicable because this is not a cluster development. All in favor? Okay, erosion sediment control standards.
I'll make a motion that the erosion sedimentation control standards are not applicable because this activity does not include filling, grading, or excavation that will destabilize soil conditions.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find, you say not applicable?
I said not applicable.
That the erosion sediment control standards are not applicable for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. Fill and excavation standards.
I'll make a motion that the fill and excavation standards are not applicable because there's not more than 100 cubic yards being moved.
Second.
Motion second on the table to find the fill and excavation standards are not applicable because there's not greater than 100 yards being moved, 100 cubic yards being moved. Is that basically what you said? Yeah, okay. All in favor? Or nothing? Fire protection standards?
Thank you. Great. I would have gotten there eventually. I'll make a motion that the fire protection standards are not applicable because the temporary classroom is less than 3,000 square feet.
Second.
Motion second on the table that the fire protection standards are not applicable because the classrooms or portable classrooms are less than 3,000 square feet. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 4-0. Flood hazard area standards.
I'll make a motion that the flood hazard area standards requirement is not applicable because the project is not inside the federal insurance rate map that is identified.
Second.
Okay, motion and second on the table to find the flood hazard standards, area standards not applicable or stated reason. All in favor? 4, okay. Parking standards.
I'll make a motion that the parking standards requirement is not applicable because the project does not change the parking requirements.
Oh, I spent some time sleeping in classrooms. You sure that's not going on, Jandry?
Funny, Mark.
Okay.
Second.
Not at Tremont.
Okay, that's other schools, okay.
Right.
Okay, motion second on the table to find the parking standards not applicable for stated reason. All in favor? Or nothing? Roads, driveways, and driveway opening standards.
Make a motion that the roads, driveways, and driveway opening standards is not applicable because the project does not include a new road, driveway, or driveway opening.
Second.
Or should it be met?
Um,
Because it's
Because
existing,
it's existing,
yes.
because I was treating it like other conditions that,
Any public road meets design instructed
Gonna
specifications.
say not applicable.
You say NA?
The reason is there are no proposed new roads.
I think that's what,
yeah.
that's
Okay,
what he said. So I'll second the original motion.
okay.
Again.
Motion is second on the table to find that the roads, driveways, and driveway opening standards are not applicable because there's no new roads, driveways, or driveway openings, right?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? 4-0. Septic waste disposal standards.
I'll make a motion that the septic waste disposal standards is not applicable because the project does not increase the load on this septic system.
Second.
You said not applicable.
That's right.
Yeah. Motion is second on the table to find the septic waste disposal standards are not applicable because there's no additional waste being generated.
Yep.
All in favor? 4-0. Sign standards.
I'll make a motion that the sign standards requirement is not applicable because the project does not include a new sign.
Second.
Motion is second on the table to find the sign standards condition is not applicable because there's no new sign. All in favor? 0. Soil standards.
I'll make a motion that the soil standards requirement has been met because the new project impacts soils minimally because it's lifted up on temporary piers.
State that again, please.
The new project impacts soils minimally because it's lifted up on, or it's supported by temporary piers.
Second.
So not applicable.
It's been met.
Met, okay.
Yeah.
Soil standards, with motion second on the table, the soil standards condition has been met because the classrooms are on post and don't disturb the soil, essentially, right? Okay, all in favor? 4-0. Stormwater runoff standards.
I'll make a motion that the stormwater runoff standards have been met because the existing drain is adequate for the increased impervious roof.
Second.
Motion is second on the table that stormwater runoff standards have been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing, did you,
No,
all in favor,
sorry.
okay.
No discussion.
All in favor?
But-
Okay, 4-0.
Yep.
Water quality protection standards.
I'll make a motion that the water quality protection standards have been met because there's no activity that will deposit pollutants into the groundwater.
Second.
Motion second on the table to find water quality protection standards have been met because there's no activity there will cause pollutants to go into the water, right?
Right.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, 4-0. Lake watershed phosphorus protection.
I'll make a motion that the lake watershed phosphorus protection requirement is not applicable because the project is not in the watershed of Seal Cove or Hutchin Pond.
Second.
Motion is second on the table to find the lake watershed phosphorus protection condition is not applicable for the stated reason. All in favor? 4-0. Lighting outdoor.
I'll make a motion that the outdoor lighting requirement has been met because the design of the temporary classroom meets the requirements.
Second.
Motion is second on the table to find the lighting, outdoor lighting condition has been met because the design of the classrooms meets standards, right?
Yep.
All in favor? Or nothing? Blasting.
I'll make a motion that the blasting requirement is not applicable, because the school will not be blasting.
Second.
Let's hope not, okay. Motion, did we get a second on that?
Yep.
Okay, motion is second on the table that the blasting condition is not applicable because no blasting is gonna go on. All in favor? Temporary sale of food or merchandise.
I'll make a motion that the temporary sale of food or merchandise is not applicable because they've already got the money in the school budget. We don't need to do a big sale.
Second.
Motion is second on the table, a temporary sale of Food or merchandise condition is not applicable for the stated reason. All in favor? 4-0 again. Okay. And Tremont Land Use Ordinance Article 8E1 requires that we review a completed application and grant an approval only if the permitting authority makes a positive finding that the application complies with the requirements of this ordinance. After the submission of a complete application to the planning board, the board shall approve an application or approve it with conditions if it makes it a positive finding based on the information presented that the proposed use will maintain safe and healthful conditions.
I'll make a motion that this project will maintain safe and healthful conditions when this requirement has been met.
Second.
Motion and second on the table that the project will maintain safe and healthful conditions. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 4-0. And will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation of surface waters.
I'll make a motion that this project will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters. This requirement has been met.
Second.
Motion and second on the table that the project will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation of surface waters for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 4-0. Well, I guess that's it.
Do we have to do a motion for the whole thing?
I think we're covered by the
We
findings of
approved
fact, right,
findings of fact.
John?
Great.
Need to make another motion. Your project's been approved, and now the newspaper can report that. Again.
Thank you.
Okay, findings of fact, or site plan review for Pointy Head Campground. Okay, we all think back to October 11th, we went through Well, anyway, went through the findings of fact right on the site plan review, and we did not vote on the whole thing, but we found that the road access into site condition had not been met. And since then, the applicant has come with some changes to the access to the site, and this also comes up in the land use ordinance, so I'm going to suggest that we go through the land use ordinance section before we discuss that at that point. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
since
yes,
the
sir.
plan has, thank you for recognizing me, since the plan's been modified, will the board be hearing any public comments based on the modification?
What do you think, board
Limited
members?
strictly to the modification.
You were able to respond, and we did get your response in an email. Do you have something to add to that?
I'd like to take the board through the reason that, a timeline and a demonstration that the queuing plan, the site access condition, is based on an unlawful expansion of the road in shoreline zone.
Would you prefer to make that argument or make your point when we address that during the land, that section of the land use ordinance?
I'm happy to do it when, so either way, either ordinance, the board's going to be voting on a road that has been modified since the plan was initially submitted. I'm happy to be heard. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak. I'll be heard whenever the board finds it convenient. I think it's relevant to vote.
I think we should wait till we get to that section, right?
Yeah, that's fine,
I
yeah.
mean,
So,
it'd be, if you don't mind waiting. It comes under, I. Okay, so first, land use ordinance findings of fact. Campgrounds. Campgrounds shall contain a minimum of 5,000 square feet area per campsite of suitable land, not including roads and driveways for each site, land supporting wetland vegetation, and land below the normal high water line of a water body shall not be included in calculating the land area per site. You want to vote on each one of these, or how do you want to handle this, John?
It's how the board looks to you.
Well, you know, we keep dancing around this. What's the
Yeah.
requirement? Because I gotta tell you, we spent a half hour on that last thing. It should have been done in 10 minutes. So do we need to go through each one or not?
The only requirement is a subdivision to go through each one individually. You can go through all these and then vote at the end.
So we could just informally go through them, have a discussion, and then vote at the end? I mean, I don't know. I've never looked it up. I've just been assumed that when I joined the board, we were doing it the right way.
But you see under Article 6, we're being asked for a motion. Starting on page
Oh,
2.
the form,
Page
yeah, the
7.
form does
Does have, asking for a motion.
ask for a motion. Yeah.
And my recollection, that's the way we've always done it.
I mean,
I
I
understand
think,
it's
I think for right
time-consuming.
now, we should just do it, because particularly for this one here, I think it's fine to build a record. But there are some, if it's not required, and we don't need to build a record, we should just move, you know, this should just be a summary motion. Like, I'd like to know what's actually required. And then, so we know what we have to do. And then but there are certain cases where I think it makes sense to build a record. This is certainly one of them. It's the way we've been doing it, so I think we should probably just go through and do each one and do it that way. But it would just be good to
I
know.
think we need a record on at least.
Oh, yeah.
these other
Yeah.
things. And I think what you're referring to goes back to minor site plan review versus.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Which we don't
It's a
have.
lot of time spent, it's just like, it's not.
Yeah, I understand. But I think for the Article 5 things, we can just go through and say that these all have been met, take one motion.
That sounds-
Are you okay
that
with
sounds
that?
great.
Okay. And as we know that they show that there's at least 5,000 square feet of land for a campsite ability. We know that, right? Campgrounds must conform to minimum requirements imposed under state licensing procedures. The planning board's approval is conditional on the state license approval, and the applicant is fully aware that they need to get those licenses before they actually get a permit from us or a permit from the code enforcement officer. Areas intended for placement of a recreational vehicle, tent, or shelter and utility service buildings, etc., uses associated with camping activities such as fire pits, clotheslines, picnic tables, shall be set back a minimum of 50 feet from exterior lot lines, 100 feet horizontal distance from the normal high water line of Great Pond, 75 feet horizontal distance from the normal high water line of other water bodies, tributary streams, or the upland edge of a wetland. I think that's been met, right?
Yes.
Okay. Campground shall be screened from all abutting areas according to the performance standards in Article V, T, and Article 5T, D, and Article 6A. Now, so we come to buffering right away. Spot isn't here, is she?
No, but, Rennie is here from her firm as well as our landscaping expert, Mr. Rebel.
I was a little confused, welcome to see what you want to do, but, it's a little confused that one drawing regarding the, changes to the road shows the fence protecting, the buffering, protecting Mr. Gott's property being moved back 32 feet from the road, is that correct? From Harbor Drive?
Where'd you see that?
We had that discussion in Tremont, and I think that we concluded we were not moving that.
The fence begins 10 feet into the property from the right of way.
Okay, this says 10 feet, but then I also saw something else that said,
The right of way is not the road edge. The pavement edge is within the right of way.
right, but, where did I see that?
Yeah, we haven't moved the
We're
fence.
not, haven't moved it, we're not planning to move the fence.
Where I saw it was on this drawing SK1, which is what I believe was submitted to the MDOT regarding the road opening, is that correct?
Right.
Yes, MDOT did see this plan.
So that's a
And that says start a privacy fence plus or minus 32 feet from the edge of pavement.
can you just clarify the difference between the edge of pavement and the edge of the right of way?
Sure, and that'll be important for some discussions later. The right of way could be, Mr. Chairman, the right of way might be this wide, yet the pavement is just the width of my body. So in one plan, we refer to the distance of the fence being from the edge of the right of way. On the plan that you have there, we refer to it as the distance is from the pavement. That explains the difference between the two numbers. The fence, as you've seen it, is not moving. Is that fair representation?
Does that make sense, Mark?
Yeah, so, yeah. Fence hasn't changed, it's 10 feet, so what we see on L1 is the way it should be, right? That's
Yes.
what we should be referring to.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
I still have concerns about buffering around Mr. Gott's house and light shining in there.
Sure. And we have Mr. Ribble explain his buffering plans to you, and I realize that on the two-dimensional plans, it's not necessarily something.
Right. And also, going up past the Coughlin's house, it's not clear to me whether there's actually any screening for these cabins that are, or these sites that are at the northernmost end of the property there. Number, I don't know what numbers they are.
14.
14 and 15.
Would you like us to address?
Yeah, please.
I don't, we're doing full size on the board. If I may.
So this is motorcycle.
You drove by?
Cold. Dark.
You gotta ride, you gotta ride.
Yes. I'm talking about these two, Mark. Here.
Yeah. Up the middle.
It's been so long, I've actually got to pull out the buffering plan somewhere here.
Is it okay with the approval plan?
Sure.
Again, it's Steve
It's
Ribble,
on the back
landscape,
here.
main licensed landscape architect with context by design.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. We were,
So I just wanted to explain. So the, again, the fence we just started to discuss starts 10 feet from, into the property from the right of way. This provides sufficient sight distance for vehicles, for oncoming traffic and whatnot. And yet, as vehicles would be turning in, making the left turn in, that still does screen the house, which is here, the headlight glare would not, from the road, would not impact the house. The fence is 8 feet tall. We were retaining the existing vegetation that is there, which are a mixture of some trees and some shrubs. Not a solid buffer, but they're there. And then, as we get to the point of the garage, the fence is elevated so that it blocks views from the windows and light pollution from the windows. And that goes back to an existing fence. It is 16 feet into the existing fence at an elevation of 16 feet. The existing fence is 12 feet tall.
Once a meeting, I'll not
Beyond there, we have looked at very closely buffering all the views from the neighbors' houses, especially on the portions that would overlook these various tent sites. And we have, per 2 meetings ago, I believe, following that meeting, we met in good faith with the neighbors. We talked about where their concerns were. The bubbled areas here are plants that we added to infill in that area that you're asking about, infill gaps within the existing vegetation so that those raised platforms would be screened from their views. And at the time they were there, they were satisfied with that response. And as we were walking, we said, well, we'll do this and this and this. And they said, well, there's also that, and we added those things as well. I think we added an additional 10 or 12 trees onto what we had walked and talked about adding on to. So we do believe that everything that was objected to previously has been addressed.
And you said you met with the neighbors and you felt they were satisfied with this?
At the end of that meeting, they said that they were. I know that there's been a letter since
Can I
that
ask the
time.
neighbors? Neighbors,
No one met with me.
what's that?
No one met with me.
No one met with you,
We
okay?
met and we said what our concerns were, but we didn't express any opinions as to whether,
Same.
what they were proposing was,
Same.
it was.
That's interesting because when we were standing there, the discussion was, we'll do this and this, and they said, yeah, that's where our concerns are.
He said where
And maybe that's it. They said where their concerns were, we said what we would do to address it, and there was no animosity at the end of that meeting.
So that's what, there was no animosity. We didn't agree to anything.
So, on, I think, Mark, you were asking about 14 and 15.
Yes.
And I don't see,
Well,
well,
I
I think-
Added things that.
well, I see some, I see some things I think added. Relative to 13, I suspect that with 14 and 15, there was, I see a note here,
I'm sorry.
existing dense,
Those are way in the woods.
are they, okay,
They're back in the
Yeah.
woods, you can't see them.
13 and 14, the ones back in the woods.
14 and 15.
These
14
two,
and
whichever
15.
number.
Which I think
14.
you were asking about, I think
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just assumed.
and so I
Those are
think
the ones back in there, okay. But
This-
then there's 13 too.
It
where
was
they
these,
added
the
this
13,
stuff here,
yeah.
or they're proposing
There
to
was a
add
concern
this.
from the barbecue and the porch and whatnot in that meeting that we've addressed with these additional plantings.
And is that the one that's on the platform?
The closer one is,
The 13 there, or, yeah. And how high's the platform?
5 feet.
Or is that the 8-foot platform? Right?
I don't see an elevation.
Somewhere.
Oh, yeah, so the platform is 5 feet tall.
5 feet.
And the tent structure on that platform would be another 8 to the peak. 13.5 above the existing grade. And the trees that we're putting in are 12 to 14 feet. That's on the 20 feet.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Mr. Ribble a question?
Sure.
Mr. Ribble, will the screen that you've added in the vicinity, which I'm gathering is the view shed into Site 13, will that screen Site 13 from the abutting properties after 2 or 3 years of growth?
When we were on site, I would anticipate that it would do that definitely within 2 to 3 years, possibly immediately.
Within 2 to 3 years, not immediately.
Possibly immediately. I mean, because of the size of the tree. These are 14 feet tree, foot tree.
They're 14 feet at the time you plant them?
Some of them will be. They're 12 to 14 feet is the purchased range.
Yeah.
So, you know, we will obviously use the most advantageous trees in the most critical positions.
So what you have here for a plant schedule may not be accurate. It says 10 to 12 feet, and it says, Thuya.
It is the There was a plan that was submitted where those trees were larger than that. I believe the 10 to 12 was the initial plan that we would come up with. And the submission previous to this that did not have this fence detail on it showed the 12 to 14.
Yeah, but you've submitted this one, which
Yeah, I
doesn't show that.
understand. I understand. We've been playing back and forth with who was submitting plans between our offices, and this somehow got overlooked. It should be 12 to 14.
What's the date on that?
Well, the date on this is 10/27.
I see.
Yeah, and that's
And
where I
this
say,
markup is 10/17.
17.
I'm looking at my stamp block.
Yeah. Oh, I see, 10/27 is stamp.
Yeah,
And that one says 12 to 14?
No,
No.
no, the one previous to that, without,
Right,
the one that does not have the fence detail.
right.
And I can go into the details of how we were playing around back and forth between offices with electronic CAD
Yeah,
files,
no,
but
that's,
you probably don't wanna know that.
I'm not worried about that.
For the record, Stephen, how large are the trees that we propose to plant? How large are the trees that we propose to plant?
We proposed to plant 12 to 14 foot trees.
Great, that's,
I understand that this is not saying that, and I would like to understand how we can best correct that, given that somewhere in your files, you do have a version that says 12 to 14. And I did not bring my copy. It would have been the plans that were submitted for the October 11th meeting.
so you say that all plant materials shall be guaranteed for a period of 1 year after the date of substantial completion.
Yes,
And at that point, any replacement plants would be guaranteed for 1 year.
that's for the contractor.
That's for what?
That's for the contractor, that's the warranty
Right,
the owner has for the contractor.
right. Do you have a plan, what happens, I've seen trees die, I mean, I
That would
lived
be-
next to a place where buffering was ordered long before I was on the planning board, and those trees just died and never were replaced. It's not a problem as far
Your
as I'm concerned.
ordinance covers that. Your ordinance requires more than this. Again, this is for the contractor.
The owner would be responsible, Mark, for replacing the trees.
And that would be similar to if we approved, I don't know, a building, and the building was, you know, I don't know, like, out of compliance. Then the code enforcement officer would find it out of compliance and say, give your trees back.
And there is the 4-year condition that the trees attain a certain, the complete screening within 4 years.
Now, is that fence actually going to screen views of the property from Mr. Gott's house?
That's estimated that it will. Well, it's going to from the garage apartment.
Yeah, obviously he's got something on the second floor there.
Right,
The
that's what I'm
foot-
saying though, that's
Apartment living.
the 16-foot portion of the fence is.
That's behind the garage apartment, not in the front. That starts in the back. And it's not long enough to buffer the headlights coming from the rear parking lot, shining over the top. They'll come right over the top. And it's not long enough either. But the 16-foot fence is behind the garage apartment, not in the front.
There's
Headlights
a
coming up-
transition to 16 feet from the 8 feet that goes along the apartment.
Behind the
And
apartment.
we've looked at this extensively
I have to.
with headlight glare. You've been on our property and
No.
used your headlights on the.
But I saw where that picture was taken, and the picture was taken right in front of that garden. If you go back, the rear parking lot is elevated. The whole property is elevated up. When you come around from that parking lot, it shines right over the top of that fence.
Your opinion that it does or that it doesn't, Steve?
My opinion is that we've performed some mock trials, if you will, of where the headlights shine. And we have created this fence to mitigate that headlight glare.
How did you do the mock trial?
We turn on headlights and look at what happens at night.
You were there at
But you
night.
didn't put up a 8-foot temporary fence of some kind to
I
see
did.
if it
There's
actually
a
screened?
12-foot fence there, and yes, he actually did.
Okay, well, that's what
The
I asked.
8-foot
Yeah.
fence, but the 12-foot fence, we calculated, based on the 12 feet, what additional buffering we would need to mitigate that
And the fence in that area is how tall?
16 feet.
16 feet.
Did you ever find the 12-foot trees?
I didn't, and
I didn't either.
I think the submission, I found the submission from last time, that's,
So,
which has the same,
the only, yeah, the only other thing I can possibly imagine is that we initially sent something for 8 to 10 feet, which I don't think so. But I'm going by memory, so I apologize.
I think I did see it.
If it was 8 to 10 and now it's 10 to 12, then I'm completely mistaken,
You're
and
right.
I apologize.
So it's 8 to 10,
And then it went
And
10
it
to
went
12.
to 10 to 12. I apologize.
now it's 10 to 12, that's the actual
I'm mistaken.
submission.
There was also something about the species of the tree or something. Did that change? Or
No, it's the same species.
There-
They're
there are more
extremely
plants now.
fast-growing
Okay.
trees.
Okay.
So Steve, the trees that we plant are gonna be 10 to 12 feet in size. After 4 years, will they screen from the vehicles, from the campground, from the abutting properties?
They should, they're estimated to grow at 3 to 4 feet a year. We're estimating them to be 1 to 2 feet as a safety factor, if you will. Conservative estimate. But local growing, nurseries and experience is that they grow to 3 to 4 feet per year.
Steve, with respect to the fence, the 16-foot fence that we believe blocks light from entering the garage apartment of Mr. Dodd, the abutter, I think it's important for the board to recognize that the way this property operates is gonna be very few cars in the first place that are leaving when they have their headlights on. But that we have accounted for this, and in our estimation, the 16-foot fence blocks those lights from that window. Is that fair to say?
I would say that is very fair.
16 feet seems like a tall fence.
Yes, it is.
Are you worried about the
Wind load?
wind load?
Yes, and so the structural makeup of the footings is going to be bigger than your typical post hole, bigger, a couple feet down, it'll have to be more substantial. And that's the cost that the applicant is willing to bear.
Your drawing just says cast in place concrete footing typical.
Well, that's what that symbol is, the cast in place, so wherever
Right.
you would see it, it's the same.
Yeah.
But it's also to be installed per the manufacturer's recommendations, so there's engineering calculations that
Okay,
have to
that
go with it.
covers you. Is that line about manufacturer recommendations that
I
you're
don't
deferring
know
to
the
the manufacturer will do the engineering?
Yes.
Make sure it doesn't tip over.
And I'm assuming since trees would have to be replaced if the fence falls down, then that would have to be replaced as well.
For
So
sure, yeah.
it would be up to the owner to make sure that the people that they purchase these things from know what they're doing.
So, in the performance standards for buffering, the purpose is to screen buildings or activities. Actually, there's missing a word there. To screen buildings or activities, land uses that could create nuisances, to divert, block, or soften lights, to reduce noise, to preserve privacy, and to reduce smells and dust. The depth of the screen and the nature of the planning required will depend upon the potential impact of a development on its neighbors. Do we feel that that has been met?
Yeah, I think so.
You know, I feel like the applicant is, you know, and there's a comment here in one of the letters, they've, you know, this isn't the first rodeo here for this application. It's come to us in a number of different forms and formats. We rejected it. It's come back. There at least was some discussion of, you know, I appreciate that there probably wasn't agreement, but there was at least an effort made. Based on what I've heard tonight, I don't think there's anything that this applicant could do in terms of buffering that would satisfy. And I understand why. I get it. I get it. But I also feel like, you know, I'm trying to, you know, read these things and impose a kind of a overall sort of reasonableness kind of framework to things. And I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like if they did much more, you're actually gonna, you're gonna start losing, I suspect people are gonna start losing views. You're gonna start losing views. And so there needs to be, I feel like they've done what they can, as much as they can. And if, you know, anything further, it's just gonna be, you're gonna have to encase it on like a steel curtain. And it just doesn't make much sense. So, I guess I would just, I think they have, I would encourage, I don't know if this is gonna go forward, but if it does, that the applicant and ensure that, you know, that's checked periodically, and that's maintained, and the neighbors would do the same, and let us know, let the town know if there's an issue, and we'll address it. But I feel it's been met. I do, I know that.
You know, one of the things that in our visual buffering standards, they say an earthen berm topped by evergreen plantings. The berm shall be a minimum of 5 feet high. And evergreens plantings will be installed a minimum height of 3 to 4 feet above that. So that gives us what? Begin with 4 feet on center and 5. That gives us 8 to 9 feet right there.
And they're proposing 10 to 12 foot tall trees.
Right. My concern is that all the gaps are being filled appropriately. Because we saw photos before of gaps within the existing vegetation
Right.
that you could actually visually look at
Well, I
over to
mean,
the campground.
isn't that you know, a CEO issue? I mean, they've gotta go, John would go back and I would think check, you know, as, you know, to make sure that the plan is appropriately implemented. Otherwise, I don't know what, you know.
I'm not sure that's the case, right, John?
As long as it's on the plan and you approve it, I can enforce it.
I mean, that's part of the
So-
CEO job.
This shows a continuous line of either new trees or existing trees, which to me is a pretty clear, which is different from the original drawing, which had existing trees and new trees and gaps. And then there were 18 new trees added to it. And that seems pretty sort of easily enforceable. Like, if there's a gap there where there's a tree missing, or a gap between trees,
Plant a tree.
John can see it and say, owner or applicant, like, this is a gap that needs to be filled.
If we would approve this buffering plan as it is right now, do you have sufficient information as a code enforcement officer to enforce it the way that Lawson is saying you can? No.
If I'm looking at L1,
Could you speak up, please, a little bit? I know. We need to get you a microphone.
making fun of me.
No, I'm not making fun of you, we just need to get you, I'm hard of hearing.
I can hear, okay, I just can't talk. Look at the plan schedule on L1.
Yes.
It says quantity, it says size. If you look at the original plan, the legend on there has a height. What does size mean? This way, this way. May I respond?
Well, I think there you go, it's by the species of the plant, and then you've got a height, and they kind of have a way.
Standards,
Yeah, I mean,
evergreen trees are sold by height, and they are sold in a range of height, as are clump deciduous trees, multi-stem deciduous trees. They're sold by height, and the a standard deciduous tree is the caliper inch of the trunk at 4 feet above the ground. And that's completely, any nurseryman, the legal standards of the American Nurserymen's Association would know exactly what that means.
But we should clarify, because the schedule lists Acer rubrums as 10 to 12 feet.
They're clumps, yes, they're multi-stems,
Ooh.
because they do greater screening.
Okay.
See, I'm looking out for you guys, trust me.
And so,
No, you don't.
and you aren't buying any single stem deciduous trees, so we don't actually see the
Not on
3
this-
inch or 4 inch.
Not on this plan, no, there are no.
But in another plant schedule,
You'd
right
see
in that
both.
size column,
You
you see a
might see
mixture of.
Acer rubrum, 12 feet, 8 feet, and Acer rubrum, 3.5 inches.
Okay.
You might see both.
Does that help? I mean, at the end of the day, it's about what, you know, it's about visual buffering, so I don't, you know.
And that's true too, at the end of 4 years.
The end of a long day.
Yeah,
We see
but there is a standard.
Yes, there is a standard.
We see existing lilac hedge, how tall are those?
Off the top of my head, I'm gonna say 9 feet, maybe 10. I don't.
But then there's a line
I don't
of
remember.
new
There's a line
dudes
of
going
them,
behind them.
and the bottom half is a little thin.
Pardon?
May I approach the bench?
Yes, you may, yeah.
This was the original. Yeah, that's how it is.
The original plan was 3 to 6 at planning.
Height.
Yep. I see that.
Where does it say height there?
What does it say here?
Does it say anything about height?
It does, but 10 to 12
10 to 12 what?
feet.
Feet.
Yeah, but he's saying size.
He's saying that it could be wide.
Size, it could be, okay.
What does size mean?
Yeah, this says height at planning, mature width and mature height.
John, did you hear Steven's explanation of the national, what did you call it, the?
Can I refer to landscaping note 1, the trees shall be true species indicated herein. All trees shall be healthy and full branching, true to form and specified size, free of disease, pests, and physical damage. Plants will be in accordance to the current American Association of Nurserymen standards and conform to general representative species. Those standards do include, and I'm happy to put an HT on here.
Sure.
But those standards do include when you buy an evergreen tree, you buy it as a height thing. I mean, it's
Yep.
10 to 12 is 10 to 12 feet high. And actually, a 10 to 12 foot wide thuya would be 40 feet tall. Honest to God.
Which you could get, but
Which we might want.
not
I've done it.
helicopter a minute.
No, we'll bring it down the road. Rocky start with you.
I know, but you were involved with that? Yeah. Are you satisfied? No? You don't like waiting for the nurseryman? All right, we can make a note or something
Can we make
about
that a condition?
the condition, like, that
You want the HT, it's height? Okay.
clarified height.
So be it. It's height.
Is there anything else I can answer?
No, and we're gonna make a,
It's just gonna come up again. as we go
yeah,
through
but this is, you know, we were gonna make kind of a
general.
motion of all these things.
Yeah.
You say it's gonna come up again, though?
Well,
Yeah, right down the bottom of the page.
Oh, okay,
buffering
so we
standards.
can get into the specificity there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think so. Okay, fair enough.
So, yeah.
Let's move,
okay.
maybe we move to number 5.
Yeah, let's try to move on here. Each recreational vehicle tender shall.
Thank you.
thanks, Stephen.
Shall be provided with a trash receptacle 30 gallons or larger.
Yeah.
We have that? Does it say anywhere?
I'm sure, I can't tell you what size trash cans each of these shelters is going to have, but as you know, there are no cooking facilities and things of that nature. I doubt there'll be a lot of trash generated. It's a pretty easy standard to comply with. We can buy 30-gallon trash cans. That's what you want.
Well, that's what's required.
Yeah, that's right.
Each campsite shall be equipped with a masonry or metal fire pit, the construction of which must be approved by the Tremont Fire Chief. We know that you're not going to allow any fires other than in the central fire pit, right?
There's one pit, that's correct. Yes.
And that the Tremont Fire Chief has given his okay with that, right?
He met with Alina, they went over
Yeah.
the entire thing. I don't know, but they talked about the fire pit itself.
A recreational vehicle or site for, and that's not applicable,
No.
this last thing. So, I'll take a motion on these 7 items here, just in general, that it could be very general.
I will move that the applicant has met the standards contained in the land use ordinance, Article 5, subsection D, campgrounds, subsection 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, with further discussion on buffering to come.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the table that the applicant has met requirements under LUO Article 5, with the exception of just further discussion on building standards. Is that basically what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay. Okay, let's go to buffering standards here. To screen buildings or activities that could create nuisances, divert, block, or soften lights, to reduce noise, to preserve privacy, and reduce smells and dust. I'm still concerned about car lights shining in Mr. Gott's windows.
Which direction are you concerned from, about Mark?
It would have to be coming from here.
Yeah,
Like that.
it'd have to be going.
Making a left turn into
Into there.
the, which is why they put the fence up, but the fence is 10 feet from the right of way, right? Which means there's kind of a 10-foot gap there, and I understand that some of that is, you know, if cars pulling out have to look down
Yeah,
there
sure.
and be able to see oncoming traffic. But
Is it the, I do wonder though, I mean, if it's, you know, it's all about the angles here, we have to go out and, you know, do,
yeah, that's,
but, you know, 10 feet back from the road, the structure, Mr. Gott's, house is also off the road. And so, you know, as you first turn,
Yeah.
turn in, you're not, the angle, I just don't know if the lights are gonna be,
I
and,
understand
and,
what you're
and
saying.
and so I think that's what they're saying, is that, you know, yes, it's 10 feet back from the road, but the structure is much further back. And by the time the headlights are, you know, at an angle that would hit the structure, you're gonna hit the fence. And then as you climb the driveway and that structure is elevated, the fence elevates.
Yeah.
And that's what they're telling us. I don't know how else to, it seems, I mean, I understand what they're saying.
The elevation of the fence is more to screen the view, correct?
It's the headlights.
Both, it does both, really, yeah, it does both. And the front, the front piece of fence that's there now, you may recall, is at an angle, intended to block more light than it would if it were perpendicular to the road. The angle, so that people feel that it casts a broader block, if you will.
Okay.
Mr. Gott, when a car just comes down the
That
road.
fence does nothing. I've been there all week. When the cars pull in, shines right in my living room window and bedroom window. That fence does nothing.
So you mean just cars going by down the road to shine into your?
Yeah, well, Madeline was there a few weeks ago when I was there, when she pulls in.
He means turning into.
Okay,
corner.
I'm just trying-
Into the driveway.
And not only that, going up the driveway, even this, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an 8-foot fence all the way up to the apartment. The angle, the headlights, the driveway's at an angle, it's gonna shine up and it's gonna shine right
So
in my window.
is the fence there now?
No.
So how do you know that when the fence is there, that it's gonna shine into your living room?
Because it's not high enough, the living room
But
is
how
on
do
the
you know
second
that?
floor.
Okay. Okay.
Well, can you offer anything, Mr. Witham, on what you've done to
We measured, yeah, we,
stand up? Yeah.
sorry, Floyd with them. So for starters, prior to any conversations, when we put the angled fence that exists there now, we put that such that any car turning into the driveway would not hit the house, which is apparently your rental or something.
No, I'm in that house too, and
You're in both
the lights
places,
do
okay.
shine in my house.
So, then we've added an 8-foot fence, so for the whole distance that someone's driving up the driveway, in order for those lights to hit you, gonna have to go up an 8-foot fence and then broadcast out to
The
your.
driveway is pitched up,
I know, but there's gonna be an 8-foot fence as you're driving. How tall are the headlights to start with?
they shine right over the top, up into the apartment.
There's no fence there now, so I don't get that part, but we did.
But you're putting the fence right next to the bushes that are there now. You'd almost have to put the fence right on the edge of the driveway to prevent that headlights from shining up,
It's-
So
there's a-
if they
there's
put an
only a couple of
18-foot,
feet.
maybe they put a 20-foot fence there, would that be okay?
probably.
But you don't know.
If-
You don't know that.
It's not gonna withstand the winds off the ocean.
I didn't ask you that. I'm asking you if they put a 20-foot fence there, would that be okay?
Maybe.
You don't know. You don't know that, right? Because you haven't seen it. Have you seen the 16-foot fence they proposed? Do you know whether that
The 8-foot fence is going right against the shrubs that are there.
Is it 8 feet or higher than that up as you get
It's
up?
8 feet as you go up the driveway, and
And it
it's only a couple
transitions?
of feet off the driveway, so.
Not according to your print, it's right up against the bushes and my trees there.
Well, but that's only like 5 feet from the.
I don't want you guys to,
Yeah.
I don't want you guys to argue.
But anyway, so, just to finish what I was saying, so I believe there's only about 5 feet between the driveway, where the cars will be, and the location of the fence. There's not much more land than that. So I don't understand how it wouldn't block in here. But furthermore, to finish what I was asked, we did have a conversation. You said no one talked to you, but I did talk to you.
On
You
the
were in
phone.
Massachusetts, on the phone, yes.
Yeah.
So we
I
rectified.
never agreed to anything.
I didn't say that. I did talk to you. You told me about the exiting vehicles, lights were shining in your back
Yeah.
windows.
Mhm.
So I created the 16-foot fence to block that. And I demonstrated, I watched people, I saw that the lights did hit, just like you said. So we added the fence to rectify that. I put a tarp up over the 12-foot existing fence to replicate what 4 feet more would be, and the lights did not shine in your windows. And that's why we proposed what we did. So, I don't know what else to say.
I'll only offer this, the standard does not simply say block, it says or soften. And at a minimum, we are reducing the amount of glare, the amount of lights. In our opinion, we are blocking it entirely. But at a minimum, we are certainly softening the blow. I think we're blocking entirely at the 16-foot section fence. And I believe entirely at the 8-foot fence as well.
So I know some.
You know, it's a tough one. Look, I appreciate,
Where are these pictures of the tarp and everything? Can I see those? Can we see those?
I don't have them with me, but we could go right to the site and we could do it.
Let's not, like.
I don't know what else to say.
If you guys have questions for the board, like,
Yeah.
ask us questions, we're happy to talk to you, but I don't think it's very helpful to talk back and forth. I'm doing some sort of pretty quick sort of elevation calculations. The, Mr. Gott's sort of second house, I don't know, one of the 2 stories in the back, is at a, somewhere between 20 and 21 feet, looking at the topo lines, which would put the second floor, if it's a big house, at maybe 30 feet, although at depth it's actually 10 feet up. So your eye is somewhere around 36 feet. The 16-foot high fence starts at elevation 22, which would put the top of the fence at 38 feet. This is all above sea level. So your eye is at 36, the top of the fence is at 38. The cars in the parking lot, the cars are at 26 or 27 feet, so their headlights are at 29 or 30 feet. It seems to me like, and plans can lie, plans aren't always, like, sometimes there's something else going on that's hard, that I'm not seeing. But it seems to me like if you're standing in the living room, you're not gonna be able to see the headlight. Now, that doesn't mean that like a car who turns its lights on isn't gonna, you're not gonna be able to tell there's a car back there, but the actual headlights will be below that edge of the fence, the 16-foot tall fence. That's looking up towards the parking lot. I'm not sure the same is true for cars pulling into the driveway. I think you will be able to see those headlights as you pull into the driveway. But I'm not sure that avoiding all visual sight of that the ordinance is asking us to make sure that you'll never be able to see a headlight.
and this would only be in the second, you talk, when you say see it, you mean up on the
On the
second,
second floor of the back of
the back? Yeah.
2 residences there. I can't really see the first residence on the site plan, so it's hard to tell.
Okay. Explain that again quickly.
If you're standing in the living room on the second floor of the Mr. Gott's house.
Your house or your apartment? They're 2 separate buildings,
Okay,
right?
the apartment,
Yep. Which one?
The apartment's in.
The
The
apartment.
apartment, call it the
Okay.
apartment. Your eye is at about 36 feet above sea level.
Yep,
The top of the fence is at about 38 feet above sea level. And the headlights in the parking lot are at about 30 feet above sea level.
so from your calculations,
There's no line of sight from car light in the parking lot to eye. Now,
right,
You
but
might see
now,
on this-
we don't know about pulling in.
I think that pulling in, you will see that it's
Yeah.
actually more than 5 feet away from the driveway. So at 8 feet, like that line of sight, I do think there'll be line of sight at the front of the driveway or the beginning of the driveway.
And there are trees along there too, which are tall, taller than the house. They have
Right.
right at the-
So in the summertime, when there are leaves on those trees.
I mean, from my perspective, this is where it sits right now. We've gotta, we've gotta, you know, you kinda look at you weigh the, you know, as best you can, the weight of the evidence, so to speak, and you have, some hired, well, certain professionals, I believe.
Landscape architect.
Yeah, who have, you know, looked at it, and it sounds like done some mock-ups, and we have certainly some concerns, and I appreciate those concerns, from the abutter. You know, I'm inclined to think that at the end of the day, it probably meets it, but I'm also wondering if there's anything we can do so that, you know, let's say it's done, and it is proven that the headlights shine right up into that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, is there something we could put in the plan that would,
Some kind
as
of-
I say this, I know I'm just creating a problem later on down the road, but I'm trying to give, some weight and credibility to,
What
you
you're
know,
saying is perhaps a condition of some kind. that
Something,
if
because-
it
because
doesn't adequately protect
you know,
them,
I don't know
just
the angle of the
change later.
dangle as I sit here. I don't know. But I appreciate what everyone's saying. I just don't, I don't know. We don't know.
Do you
But
think that the requirement should be that there should be no line of sight from headlight to residence?
No, I circled softened lights when
Yeah.
they said that.
Yeah.
I think there's a materiality component to it as well. But I also think that, and that's why I kind of asked, you know, was it just traffic going by? I mean, traffic goes by my house, I can tell, the
Right.
lights go by. But I think that's different than you know, if someone's turning in and the headlights are pointing right into you, that's different. That's, you know, and it's not just a neighbor now. There's gonna be some people, I think not a lot. It's seasonal, but there will be more people coming in, and they're probably gonna be coming that way. I mean, if I'm, you know, unless they decide they wanna go around Seawall, you know, their GPS is gonna tell them to go straight, and they're gonna be coming in from the direction that would shine. So I don't know if there is a condition or something where we can, it means you know, if there's an issue, you'd have a massive.
Right, a 16-foot wall or a 20-foot wall, and I'm
Well,
not sure, like,
That's my concern is,
that's the right solution.
Well, I'm just trying to
you
find a
know,
way
if we
though.
find it's not adequate,
Yeah.
is this solution then going to be workable? You know, or is it, you know?
I'm
it's-
hopeful that we don't
You
need
know,
to
like
get
a
there.
20-foot fence, it's not going to work out, right?
No, you know, maybe you put a screen on top that has, you know, lets the wind go through, but it softens the light even more, you know, I don't know. You know,
Right.
if the fence works, if it kills the line of sight to those headlights, it'll be a block. If it doesn't work and the headlights shine above the top of that fence, then, I mean, it's certainly still gonna soften it. You're still
Yep.
gonna, you know, lose everything below the, you know, the height of that fence. And there's probably is something you could add at the top that wouldn't create sail, that would further dampen the headlight. I suspect that there is. I'm trying to split the baby here. It's not easy.
Beth, you've been quiet. Anything that you want to say, or?
Just taking it all in.
Okay. I'm giving you the opportunity. Okay, well, you want to make a motion?
What would the I'm like almost there with you, Brent, but like, it's hard for me, it's hard for me to come up with like, what would the condition be?
It's either we do that, or I would just say it's probably met, because I think
Right.
it probably softens the light enough. But I would like to give an opportunity to, because we didn't go and see it. Like,
Because it doesn't exist, we can't.
right, you can't. And if, you know, I don't think we want to create a precedent where we have to go and, you know, see every single buffer. We need to be able to take testimony and weigh it and decide and think, okay, it complies with the standard, which is not a, you know, it's not a black and white block. You know, there's a materiality component, but I also, you know, I know where his house is, I know what he's talking about, and if it
Would
doesn't.
you want cars turning in shining lights in your bedroom window if you were a neighbor to a commercial?
Would I want it?
Yeah.
I mean, I am a neighbor to a campground, and my house is pretty
Well, I
close to
didn't
the
say
road.
campground. I said commercial.
I'm also
commercial
neighbors to kind of, you know, look, you're asking me now a personal question.
Yeah.
You're asking me my philosophy and how I view on land rights. Look, I believe that when cars go by, I see them. My house is close to the road.
Yeah,
It used to
your
be a goat path.
Yeah.
And it's like 5 feet off the road. And there's a gravel operation across the road, and there's a campground down the road, and people have rights to use their land, and you've got to minimize impacts on neighbors. I think they're doing that, and I think that you know, look, as I had said earlier, I know it wasn't a very popular comment. You know, at some point, someone decided to make that a development there, and I don't know whether the folks that were on Bunny's land, maybe they didn't like that. You know, but all of a sudden they're having to look at a development across the field. And so there is growth. People can do things with the land. You have to, you know, there are things that, you know, it's just, you know, you get neighbors. Sometimes you got new neighbors, and I realize it's a campground. It's a little different, but that's how I feel about it. But I also appreciate the concern, and I would want, you know, some ability to come back if they completely got it wrong. And the way the driveway, you know, tips up, and the angle of the, you know, where the fence is off and the driveway, and the height of the building, if it's completely off, I think there should be some ability to come back and revisit that. I just don't know how to do that in a motion.
Right, no, a way that gives code enforcement officer.
Yeah, I mean,
Something.
and because I think if you say it can't be blocked, right? I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
require that.
that's right.
So
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So hearing the board discussion, the applicant would certainly agree to amend or to have a condition placed that fence that is currently scheduled to be 10 feet tall, we'll make it 10 feet tall for starters. And if that doesn't work, then we'll add a screen to the top of it. But we're happy to try to allay some concern by going up another 2 feet, although we picked 8 because we think that that's adequate based upon what we have done for an analysis. But if you want, we'd be happy to make a condition that it be a minimum of 10.
I'll take a motion. Somebody wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the buffering standards requirement has been met with the following 2 conditions. That the plant schedule be revised to indicate to clarify the height of the trees when installed, like the installed height of trees, so the code enforcement officer can review that. And that the privacy fence, the 163-foot long section of privacy fence be raised from 8 feet to 10 feet.
Some of it is higher than that now.
There's
The 8
sections that are 16 feet long, but there's a 163-foot long section
Okay.
that is 8 feet.
Okay.
Rather than that section be raised to 10 feet.
I'm going to second that. Then I want to discuss though.
Good.
I'll second that.
Yeah, because I had a question too. even before, okay, but you seconded it, okay. Motion and second on the table that the buffering standards condition has been met, with the conditions that the plant schedule be revised to reflect the true height of the trees when they're installed, and that the 163-foot section of privacy fence, which is now 8 feet, be raised to 10 feet.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
Discussion.
Is that, okay. I mean, the only thing I would think, I'm thinking about is that when you, and it's a comment I made earlier, you start blocking views. I don't know what a 10-foot fence looks like from the folks over there now. Like, I want, what I'm trying to do is address Mr. Gott's issue, or what I was talking about. I just don't know, like, if you raise that thing 10 feet, I'm just raising it. I don't know what it does to all of the views over there the other way. Maybe they're okay with it. I guess, boy, it'd be nice to get feedback from the butters, on, on whether that's gonna,
I mean, we're in discussion, we can ask them these questions.
they're not all here,
Right.
I'll vote in favor of that, but I will encourage the parties to, to, go ahead.
Well, the one thing that I heard that wasn't included in the motion was something about if this isn't adequate,
Well, I think because he's
just gone to the 10
gone,
feet.
which,
Or you could put minimum of 8 feet, maximum of 10.
okay, I like that.
But I think,
And then
Mark,
you
your
could get the
question
feed-
about, like, if it's not adequate, I think it's not clear to me, like, what that would mean, and who gets to decide.
Right, I think you're right.
Who
It
gets to
it
decide?
creates a thorny question down the road because
Okay.
of the soften versus block,
We all go to
ju-
Ken's house and wait for a
Yeah,
car to come by.
Exactly, I think you've got I like Beth's idea, and I don't know, I don't know if it gives sufficient guidance, though, to the applicant, a minimum of 8,
Right,
maximum
because
of 10.
again, it's then asking the applicant to decide what is adequate, or whether 8 or 10 is the right choice, and without quantitative or sort of really clear, like, the fence must block so many lumens from
Right,
so many such distance.
Right.
Okay,
We
Let's
either
call for a
choose a
vote.
height.
did you want to amend your motion, or you want to leave it as is?
I was gonna leave it as is.
By the way, all of the butters along that side are here, they're all represented. If you do have
Okay.
questions for them, I know you.
Did you have a question for them?
What do you think about 10 feet?
I think
I'm
it's a
not-
wind sail, waiting to damage.
Yeah, but
the
that's,
property.
assuming we can get past the engineering problem. Do you have,
I don't think their problem is they're not affected by headlights turning into or leaving.
We're
Okay.
behind
Much.
Ken. We're
What's
behind-
that?
We're behind Ken.
Yeah, you're behind,
Can you
so.
see that driveway from your place?
Yes.
And how do you feel about looking at a fence versus looking at the 6 trees that are there now? Would it, like, does fence feel like an improvement to you? If it blocks headlights at night, but blocks the view
Well, it
during
would
the day?
only block it for a certain amount of time, because then it would be in the parking lot, right? I mean, it only comes up the side of the property, but then as the headlights turn into the parking lot, then, we have headlights there. Now, granted, they're talking about some buffering, but I'm not sure that's adequate, but. that's-
Right, let me just sort of narrow my question is, as you drive past that driveway to your house, and also you're at your house looking out past Ken's house, and would you rather look at a fence, just for that little section?
Sure.
A fence, or would you rather look at a fence and not see as much headlights, or not have a fence and have headlights for your place? Not, like, ignore Ken's living room for the moment.
I'm not sure that's, that doesn't matter.
That's fine. That's a totally acceptable answer as well. Like, if that's not
Hobson's choice.
clear to you, if you don't have a clear opinion, like, that's okay too. I'm not trying to push you into something. I was just very curious.
So it's not just the headlights though, too, they should be screened from any activities at the campground, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, screened is, you can see through screens.
Ken, would you rather have a 30-foot tall opaque surface that you can't, like, you would not be able to tell whether there are people going
There's
or
a wall
coming
somewhere they started building.
at your neighbor's house? But you couldn't see anything past that.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Let's vote on the motion.
That's fine. We don't need it. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
at some point we should have a beer, we can like wax philosophic about.
The question I asked was, are you happy with this motion, or did you want to amend it?
I do not want to.
Okay, so we have a motion and second on the table to find that the buffering standards have been met with the conditions that the plant schedule be revised to reflect the true height of the trees that are being planted when they're installed, and that the 163-foot section of the privacy fence be raised from 8 to 10 feet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? 3-1. Huh?
3-1
3-1.
opposed.
I opposed.
Mark votes.
Clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting. Vegetation spelled wrong.
Am I right that this doesn't apply?
Hmm?
Does this not apply? It's about resource protection zone, shoreland zones.
Second, rest of shoreline zones.
I don't think we're in that zone.
That's what it looks like to me. You agree, John? Not applicable?
Not applicable. Yes, I was about to, unless I was missing something. I haven't yet made a motion, but I'll make a motion that the clearing or removing of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting requirement is not applicable because the project is not in a resource protection zone or shoreline zone.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion and second on the table that clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting condition is not applicable for the state of reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 4-0. Cluster development standards, here's an easy one.
I'll make a motion that the cluster development standards are not applicable because the application is not for a cluster development.
Somebody want to make a second?
Second.
Beth made a second. Cluster development standards condition is not applicable because it's not a cluster development. All in favor? 4-0. Erosion and sediment control standards. Written soil erosion and sedimentation control plan. Do we have all this stuff? Mr. Barrow, can you point out where you've indicated that you've met this condition?
Well, I'll turn it over to our engineer, but we did have, of course, the stormwater management plan done and the peer review performed by an engineer of your choice, and we
Yep.
believe it was deemed acceptable.
But I think that this is more about erosion control fabric. I'll just save us all some time and make a motion that this, the erosion and sedimentation control standards have been met because of the details on sheet C3, the erosion control fabric, the stone check dam, the construction entrance detail, include provisions for controlling erosion during construction, and that the project minimizes the movement of bare soil, or the exposure of bare soil.
Second.
Good catch. C3, you say?
Yep.
Okay.
There.
Motion and second on table that the erosion and sediment control standards condition has been met for the stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Hearing nothing. Fill and excavation standards.
I'll make a motion that the fill and excavation standards have been met because they're not proposing to move more than 100 cubic yards of fill.
What about within the septic system?
How do we know that?
I don't know, maybe not. We'd have to look at the septic design.
The majority of this project is really just being fit to the existing contours. The goal was to disturb as little soil as possible and have the development into, into the existing areas. So there is very minimal filling activities proposed.
How much is
that-
100
There's some
cubic
excavation
yards?
involved, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
septic system would involve
Moving them.
moving of earth and bringing in the right soils to,
And certainly you're gonna do some grading in a couple other places,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
I
that's
would not
good.
be surprised if we were in excess of 100 cubic.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, okay, well,
So it's just a condition, they need to get a permit, I think? I mean, they
Yes.
wouldn't know until they actually,
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause you got 2,000-gallon tanks, right?
hmm.
Is it a chambered system? Yep. 42 side feed chambers, I mean, it's gonna bring in more than 100 cubic yards.
There's also
I defer to you,
transfer
Ben.
water and
Yeah.
electrical.
Yeah.
where do they get that permit, from the town?
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna
Well,
ask.
the-
Where's the permit come from?
John,
Okay.
Did you
Yeah.
see that look he gave me?
yes.
So it's just a condition that they'll have.
Condition, yeah.
Yeah, that you just have to get your town permits.
Okay,
How do you say
come on,
that?
Mr. Motion Man.
Mr. Motion Man.
I've been called worse. I'll make a motion that the fill excavation standards, requirement, has been met, will be met, has been met because the applicant will need to get a fill and excavation permit.
Septic permit.
You don't like that motion, do you?
Permit.
I don't know, I'm not
I
sure
don't-
how it's.
I
Like,
don't-
they
I don't like
will,
it either.
like, it's been met because they will do something?
I mean, I think it's on the condition
On the
that the
condition.
applicant
Okay.
obtains the
It has
appropriate
been met
permit.
with the condition that they obtain the necessary permit for fill.
Town
and
permits,
excavation.
State it again, please.
That's a long time. I make a motion that the fill and excavation standard, requirement has been met, with the condition that, any fill or excavation, greater than 100 cubic yards, is, receives a permit.
Second,
From the town.
from the town, second.
Yeah, motion second to table that the fill and excavation standards condition has been met with the condition that the applicant is to obtain the proper permits from the town, correct? Okay, all in favor? Or nothing? Fire protection standards. Plans for transient accommodations, marinas, nursing homes, convalescent centers, multifamily developments, hospitals, schools, theaters, mercantile developments over 3,000 square feet, business occupancy of 2 or more stories, etc., shall be approved by the state fire marshal's office.
I'll make a motion that the fire protection standards is not applicable because this campground is none of those things.
Second.
Motion second on the table that the fire protection standards, conditions not applicable because, the campground does not meet any of the definitions that would require state fire marshal's office permit or approval.
Sure.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, or nothing? Flood hazard area standards. Flood hazard development permit must be obtained from the planning board before any change caused by individuals or entities to improved or unimproved real estate begins within any areas of special flood hazard identified on the federal insurance rate maps for Tremont.
I'll make a motion that the flood hazard area standards is not applicable because this project is not within the area of special flood hazard.
Is that right?
Second.
Motion second on the table, the flood hazard area standards, conditions are not applicable because, this is not in the flood hazard area. All in favor? Or nothing? Parking standards. One per every sleeping room or campsite, plus one per every 2 employees, 1 to 2. We've been through this before and we found it.
Yes.
Be okay.
Yep.
Motion, anybody?
I'll make a motion that the parking standards requirement has been met because the 19 parking spaces cover the, or meet the requirements.
Second.
Motion is second on the table that the parking standards condition has been met because it meets the standards. All in favor? Or nothing?
Here's where it gets interesting, huh?
And now, we get back to the roads, driveways, and driveway opening standards. It's going on 8 o'clock, folks.
Should have brought some water.
You want to take a quick break here, or are you okay?
I'm fine, yeah.
Okay. Okay. You want to let Mr. Bearer speak right now, and then we'll have Mr. Pelleggi respond?
Thank you. So, over the last year, there was concern, excuse me, under the site plan review ordinance standard, that our configuration of the driveway might cause queuing on the public road. And we asked for an opportunity to address that concern. And in our submission of October 26th, which you all have, what you will find is a description of the activities that we proposed that is different than before. Most importantly, we have a right turn only sign as you leave the facility, which you didn't have before. So you're not gonna have somebody waiting to turn left there, perhaps causing or being the cause of congestion. We have, as we had indicated before, the sign at the top of the driveway saying, wait for entering traffic, or words to that effect. Down at the road at Route 102, we contacted the DOT, and you have a copy of our application in there. It hasn't been approved yet, but our engineer can speak to the status of that. But what we asked the DOT was for permission to widen the end, what you would consider the end of our driveway, but very importantly, it's in the highway right of way. We are not widening the driveway into our property, we are widening and building up the shoulders along the state's highway to effectively create a wider mouth or opening to our project, and our engineer will describe why that makes traffic flow there more tenable and less likely, again, to cause any queuing along the road. You also will note that in our October 26th submission, we provided you with a photograph of 2 cars passing one another. And the reason for that photograph is that it demonstrates that while the road width is somewhere between 11 and 12 feet, the driveway, road, call it whatever you want, is 11 to 12 feet. 2 cars can pass, and if they should happen to meet, which we think is gonna be rather rare, given what I just described to you as the traffic control measures that we have in place. But if they should meet, they can easily pass one another. There are no ditches on either side of this road or driveway. There are no other impediments that would prevent 2 cars from passing one another or one car from pulling over. So we think, and I'll ask Mr. Quartermarch to address in more detail the standards of our road here, or driveway, because Mr. Pileggi in his filing brought up an argument that he's raised before, which I think the board has dismissed or has accepted as not applicable any longer. And that is that our use of this driveway, the driveway that passes over our property, the driveway that has been there for decades, maybe a century or more, can't be used to get to any use that's not a use allowed in the commercial fisheries district, because a portion of the driveway is in the commercial fisheries district. I would suggest to you that that's not what your ordinance provides for. Your ordinance in the table of uses under the in the shoreland area, specifically to the commercial fisheries and maritime district, allows use of existing roads and driveways. It doesn't limit the use of that road to any particular use. That is the use. That is what's allowed. To say otherwise would be, I think, probably folly, because one, I don't believe that's a fair interpretation of the ordinance. It's pretty plain that you can use an existing road or driveway. Right there on the top, Mr. Chairman, I think it's the second one down on that list.
It is, yeah.
And that's the end of the inquiry there. You can use it. It doesn't limit your use for a particular purpose. And when you have driveways, which you do in a number of places in your community, where they run perpendicular to the commercial and fisheries district, I think you'd be cutting your nose to perhaps spite your face if you were to suggest that you can't use your driveway to get to a use that is not allowed in the commercial and fisheries district with balancing our lanes. In this particular case, Ms. Brogdon owns 15 acres of land, accessible by only one means, and that is that driveway. To suggest that she can't use that driveway to get to any other use that she might want to make of her property, I think is absurd. But more simply, is simply inconsistent with what your ordinance plainly allows. Now, Mr. Pileggi also raised the argument that the driveway is a road, and that we don't meet the standards of a road in your ordinance. And we plainly do. I've made this summary. It's simply a photocopy. I'll give you one in a moment, Dan. It's a photocopy of the page out of your ordinance and the standards that have to be met for roads, driveways, driveway openings. And we have in red noted for you why our existing driveway, with the changes also that we're making at the mouth of it, meet all of these standards. And I'll just address one, and then I'll let Rennie address the others in terms of the grade, the curves, the degrees, and all of those other things that I don't know much about. But what I do know something about is rights of way. And a right of way is something that by definition you have a right to travel over, but that you don't own. Well, in this case, the applicant owns the entire frontage, hundreds of feet. So there is no such thing as a right of way over your own land. So to suggest that we don't have a 30-foot right of way is, candidly, it's absurd. We do. We've got a 200-foot right of way, or however wide our driveway happens to be. And if we ever did have to relocate that, if we were allowed to, we could certainly do that on our own property. So to suggest that we don't have a 30-foot wide right of way is just inconsistent with land law, if you will. So we think that the queuing concern that was raised back on October 11th is addressed by the widening, primarily the widening of the road, at the widening of the driveway down here at the intersection of the road, Route 102A, providing for more than enough room for the exiting car to be well out of the way of an entering car and not be in traffic. And Mr. Quartermarch will discuss with you the mechanics of getting the DOT's approval. You had suggested last time that perhaps an approval can be granted on the condition that another permit from another agency be obtained. We have made made such application and to expect to receive that permit shortly, but would understand that it would need to be a condition of your approval this evening, since we don't have it in hand. But unless you have questions for me, based on anything that I said, I'll sit down and let Mr. Cornmarch address you concerning the specifics of the driveway.
When I look at our table of land uses, it says motorized vehicular traffic on existing roads and trails. Doesn't say anything about driveways. And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
know that this is a driveway.
Interesting observation, you made it last time too. Quite frankly, candidly, with all due respect, that's absurd. If you can have a road and you can have a trail, you plainly can have something in between those two things. It might be called a driveway. You can call this tract, whatever you wanna call it. You can call it a road, I don't care what you call it. Call it a road, call it a driveway, call it a trail. It doesn't matter. That's beyond the pale.
And you have not obtained the okay from MDOT regards to the road opening, so he's gonna address that right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll listen to him, yeah.
We did talk to DOT, they were hesitant to even consider this as a road opening, because it's not. It's an existing, whatever we call it, it's an existing access to the property. They said, you're not applying for a new one. All you wanna do is formalize a gravel shoulder along DOT's right of way. DOT said this is really in their report, it's not considered work on the access to this property, it's along the driveway. They said, but, you know, for the sake of it, sure, we'll go out there, we'll take a look at it, we sent them the plan. They have given verbal, let's say, they have said they look favorably upon it, they don't see any hangups, we anticipate that any day now. The approval from DOT, but we understand that would absolutely have to be a condition.
Yeah, I think this board would feel better if you actually had it.
We tried, yeah, I mean, as you can't. We got it then as soon as we could after this meeting, it's just in their process, there's one guy, Craig Kosa, but it's the only guy that reviews them in his zone, so he's been out there to take a look at it, didn't see any hang-up, so we wish that we did have that to share tonight, but we don't.
Go ahead.
What does modifying the existing drain entail? There's a note on the SK one.
Yeah,
Says modifying existing drain and ditch,
One right here.
yeah.
Yeah, so there is an existing structure there, that just provides drainage for the surrounding area.
Is it a storm drain? Do you
Yes.
have any idea where it goes? Yeah.
Yeah, it collects water, I believe it crosses the street. We just wanna make sure that that's in there, that has to function at the end. It doesn't get buried somehow in this work. So just keep it operating as it has.
And it's within the DOT's right of way, but the applicant would do the work? I mean,
That's what the permit from DOT.
The permit allows the applicant to get a truck with gravel and,
Yep.
like, do all that road work.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Happy to answer questions on the dimensional standards, too, the handout that Mr. Barra passed out if there are questions on it.
So the minimum right of way, is that, defined as center line? I guess you said 15 feet on either side of the center line of the road, of the driveway, we call it driveway. The thing.
I didn't see it defined that way in the ordinance, but whether it's in the side of it or in the middle of it, there is sufficient space. However, as Mr. Barra pointed out, they can't give themselves a right of way over their own property.
It doesn't look like you would have 15 feet. Isn't,
Running up this access.
yeah, that sort of tight, that pinch point there.
From the center line, there is 15 feet out, we did check that.
Okay.
And this is just at the mouth of the
You-
thing. Because I mean, like Ken Goss submitted pictures that he took and his measurement was only 10 feet wide across the driveway.
The driveway does vary, I believe in recent days, they had a cleanup day and kind of remeasured what's there for the driveway now. And obviously it does vary, it's not a perfect width, but I think one of the narrower points, what would we say, it's between 11 and 12 feet. It was a consistent measurement that stayed.
It was paved at one point, and it's, as you can imagine, over the years, it's overgrown on either side 2 inches.
Is it a problem to put a fence within the 15-foot right of way? The 30-foot right of way, the 15-foot space?
What was the question?
The fence, I think, goes inside of that 15-foot. From the center line, I think the fence is closer to 15 feet at the pinch point.
Yep.
And you're correct, there is, I think you said, at that pinch point it is, but.
About 15 feet to the property line, but.
The fence is
inside
within
there.
that 15,
Yeah.
but that's, I mean, I didn't see that's clearly defined in the ordinance, but historically that's not a problem. You have guardrails, fences, retaining walls, all those things within right of way.
Other questions? Okay, we may have some more, but we'll let Mr. Pelleggi speak right now.
You can do that.
Do you want that up?
Yeah, please, thank you. Thank you, Daniel Pelleggi, I represent several of the butters. Nice to see everybody again, and thank you again for the opportunity to talk. I'm going to go through this a little more specifically than I normally do when I talk to you, because I want to help you through this, but I want to very clearly make a record about some of this. Under your ordinance, a driveway applies only to a residential situation. It's the way your ordinance is written. This is changing, because it's a residence there now. It's now gonna serve this driveway, existing driveway in the shoreland zone, is now going to change to a road if you grant this application. That's a difference, that's a change in use from a driveway serving a residence to a road under your ordinance. I'd argue that that makes it non-conforming, but I want to talk about something else first. So, the new queuing plan depends entirely, 100%, on an unlawful expansion, physical expansion of the road that occurred in 2022. You can see on the plan that's before you, C1, there is what's called, you can see the red line, that's the side of the red line is CFMA shoreland zone. The other side, the right side, is the residential business zone. And you can see this line kind of moves to the south. And the turnout area that the applicant is discussing is here, most of which is in the CFMA zone. And you can see in the October 26th submission, this was called an existing pull-off. Yeah, I think they used the term pull-off. And that's, if you look at the plan that was submitted in October, SK1, it's a gravel turnout adjacent to the house.
SK1, okay.
Most of which, again, called existing pull-out, most of which is within the CFMA zone. Part of it isn't, a little tiny part. Now, thank you to Ken Gott for his photographic submissions to you, because Ken's photos that are dated and marked demonstrate that at the time of the application, no such turnout existed. There was a lawn in the area of that turnout with pavers and a U-shaped sidewalk. The road, driveway at the time, was just a continuous strip of pavement. There was no turnout there. You can see from Mr. Gott's submissions that the turnout that the applicant conveniently calls existing was installed in April of 2022.
Can I ask what Mr. Gott's submissions were since the applicant didn't receive them?
What they were.
We didn't receive Mr. Gott's submissions. I don't know what you're talking about.
He submitted a letter with a bunch of photographs.
It'd be nice if the applicant.
You can borrow my copy.
It's nice that I can borrow one. You'd think there'd be a method where the applicant would receive a copy.
Well, let's speak to our code enforcement officer about that.
So you can see from the photos that in April of 2020, I had April 24th photos, you can see that it's mid-project. A bunch of the pavers have been uninstalled, and the sidewalks are in the process of removal. I want to be really clear about this. If you look at the drawings that the applicant submitted, C1 and C2, that were submitted for our March 8, 2022 meeting, there's no turnout. There's a lawn with a U-shaped sidewalk as late as the March submissions. Better
Is
yet,
that the one with the car parked in it? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about in terms of the photos. If you keep going with the photos, yeah, you can see where they're actually in the construction project.
Yeah.
So more importantly, buffer plan L1, we talked about that at length tonight. Buffer plan L1 that was submitted, it's dated June 27, 2022, not the current one, June 27, 2022, that's the engineering plan. That shows no pullout, none. It shows an existing lawn and a U-shaped sidewalk. So here we are mid-project, and we have the engineering plan that the queuing avoidance plan relies entirely upon, a pullout that wasn't existing, that was created during the pendency in violation of the ordinance. It was created during the pendency of this application before this board approved anything. There's been no presentation that they obtained a permit to widen the driveway from the code enforcement officer, assuming such permit might be available. Now, the applicant's October 26, 2022 submission that they gave to you for this meeting, if you look at the engineer's cover letter, paragraph 2, and I'm going to quote from it, due to zoning restrictions that limit the owner from widening the existing driveway within the front portion of her property, and the quote goes on. So the applicant acknowledges that in the CFMA zone, they can't widen the driveway. They did, and it's unlawful, and if you grant this queuing plan, if you change your vote on the site plan ordinance, and if you allow this driveway as it exists now under the land use ordinance, you are approving a modification to a driveway in a shoreland zone that you're not allowed to approve. Now, interestingly, the October 26, 2022 letter that the engineer indicated they didn't have authority to widen their driveway in the shoreland zone was written after they already did it. What Mr. Baird explained to you, I'm gonna move on from this area, it's unlawful. We're gonna talk about these areas within the road right of way that they wanna expand the driveway. A tenet of, I think Mr. Baird called it the land law, property rights, is that the applicant owns the property that isn't paved within the road right of way. The applicant's property and it's in the shoreland zone. The state maintains a right of way, so if they want to expand the road, expand the shoulder, something like that, they have the right to do that, assuming that certain standards are met. That doesn't change the town's zoning requirements about what an applicant can and cannot do within the zoning district. And what this plan calls for queuing is another expansion of the driveway road, here and here. Clearly within the shoreland zone, clearly within the marine commercial fishery zone. The applicant's own engineer says you can't do it, they're doing it. If you approve it, you're approving a violation. The supplemental report then indicates that there are no fences, landscaping, or other features that would prevent cars from moving around one another. Well, you just approved a buffering and landscaping plan that has a 10-foot fence that's gonna be in the way of cars waiting in the pull-out area, newly created in April, that are gonna be trying to determine what cars are coming from the south headed northbound, either passing the property or turning into the property. They now have to look through a 10-foot fence. I don't know how you do that. More importantly, where the cars are gonna queue is on the northbound side of the main road as they wait to turn into this property. And there is no way You have no evidence from the applicant who bears the burden of proof that northbound traffic wanting to turn into this property can see anybody in the turnout area or anywhere else along the length of the road, except right at the entrance, within the 10-foot gap. If there was a queuing problem before, and you already voted that there was, it's worse now. And you can't allow the queuing to be solved by an unlawful expansion of the road that's already existing. So the picture that the applicant submitted of cars side by side, I don't know how they did this, because it shows cars and they're overlapping the road, so the cars are already off of the road area, which means they're expanding the road. But there's a fence there, and there's a white fence on one side, and there's a post on the other side. And if they're not visible, I don't know when the applicant took that photo, or whether it's photoshopped to remove those things. It's impossible for that photo to have been taken at a time, any time recently, because the board can't possibly understand the positioning or the relationship between the existing fence, the existing post on the other side, and the cars that are side by side. And by the way, if you're allowing cars to pass each other on the grassy area outside of the existing road, you're also allowing expansion of the road by definition. So statistics, available statistics, the average sedan width is 5.8 feet. Chevrolet Spark, I went for the smallest car you could find, 5.2 feet. So two Chevrolet Sparks side by side would scrape their mirrors on that road going next to, trying to pass next to each other on the current road, 11 feet. A pickup truck, I don't know, when I drove down here tonight, everything I saw was a F-150 or Chevrolet equivalent or GMC equivalent. Ford F-150 in 2022, 6.7 feet wide. I don't really have anything else to add. You can't do it. The queuing is a problem. Queuing is worse than it was last time when you voted against it. Everything that they want to do here is an expansion of, an unlawful expansion of an existing road within a shoreline zone. And it's easy. It's really easy. I've been on the other side of this. We always dismiss the marine, commercial fisheries, maritime activity, I used to say this correctly, maritime activities zoning district. We always ignore it because it doesn't feel like shoreline. But it is. It's restricted. It's restricted to preserve traditional marine maritime uses on purpose, to preserve the identity of towns, preserve the history that existed in coastal towns. That's the only reason it exists. This is different. This is an expansion. This is a use of a road in a shoreline district, zoning district. It has nothing to do with the approved use. Nothing. Zero. And whether it's their only access or whether it's not their only access, it ain't allowed. And I thank you again for listening to me. I'll answer anything.
Yeah, sort of a comment that I'm sure you'll have a reaction to and then a question. My comment is that, you know, you talked about preserving the character of the town. What's interesting is particular property, and I realize that enough time had passed so that it lapsed, but that used to be an inn. And people were coming and going up that driveway road path when it was an inn, going way back.
Sure.
So I'll just park that there. And I realize legally it's lapsed, but in terms of maintaining the character and the history, that was the history. It was an inn. Hey, I'm just making a comment.
Yes, I'm going to answer you.
I just made a comment. Now I have a question.
Okay.
Do you have any evidence to establish, on average, how many queues or how many instances during a day, peak season, vehicles will meet in that driveway and have to pass, or people will have to queue? Is there any evidence that you have?
So, Mr. Witham, you're not putting the burden of proof on.
I'm just asking you a question. You don't. If you don't, that's fine.
This board already voted. You already
Whoa.
voted.
I just asked you, I think the answer is no.
The answer is, you already voted that queuing would
I'm
happen.
just, so they have presented evidence. What they've said is that it's, I think they've used the word unlikely to occur very often, or they've described it in a way that it won't occur that often because of the number of the, I think it's 15 cabins, because of the nature of how campgrounds, people come and go, the nature of how they would be used. I'm just, and I've heard, a lot of concern about queuing, about, cars meeting in the roadway, and I'm just trying to understand if there's any evidence other than just a gut feeling that that's gonna happen.
Well, so the evidence, several things that you raised. First of all, you're in a specific, many years ago, when this inn was created, the commercial fisheries zoning district didn't exist. The inn became, when that district was overlaid onto this area, that inn became a non-conforming use. It was a lawful non-conforming use.
Yep.
And your ordinance specifically addresses lawful non-conforming uses and allows them to continue until they're abandoned. This was abandoned by your ordinance definition.
Yeah, we already covered that. I asked, the question I asked was about the number of the, any evidence about the number, how much queuing is gonna occur or anything like
I
that.
appreciate your giving me the opportunity to speak in response to your comment and question. Thank you. The inn doesn't exist anymore. It's abandoned, and it can't be considered in terms of the use of the road. Now, with respect to the queuing issue, this board voted at the last meeting that we attended, 4-0, as I recall, that the applicant had not met its burden of proof. That was the burden that you put on the applicant, which is what your ordinance says. They bear the burden of proof. They want to do something with their land, it's their burden.
So you can talk in circles all night if you want. I just asked a simple question. Whether
I'm
you have-
answering the question, and I would appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Look,
In
I get it.
addition to responding to you, I am making a record so that I can go to the Board of Appeals and if
Can you
necessary,
make
to
the
the
record in a way that responds to the question?
I am doing so.
Okay.
You can dislike my point of view because I don't share the point of view.
I just dislike not answering the question.
I don't share the point of view that we treat ordinances, particularly in shoreland areas, holistically, and we try and let people do what they want, even if it's just kind of within the framework of the ordinance.
Don't ascribe a point of view to me. That's not what I just said. What I asked you was whether you have any evidence.
That's good. Go easy, guys, okay?
Well,
It is what you said, and I'm responding to it. I have evidence that this board voted that they didn't meet the burden on queuing. They just made it worse. They made it worse with an unlawful widening of the road and they put a fence in the way. That's the answer. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Pluggy, I had a question for you.
Yes, sir.
If you're.
Sorry. I thought you guys were done hearing me.
you
This is
might
a-
not get an answer.
This is a question, okay? Mr. Bear had an argument about the minimum right-of-way required under our roads, driveways, and opening standards. We say it's supposed to be 30 feet. He says they can meet that as a right-of-way.
They can't. The reason that they can't is because, as the engineer said, you can't widen the road within the zoning district that it's in. So you get what's existing. You don't get a right-of-way over anything else for a road. That's the answer. Did I do that directly enough?
Yeah, for me.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Bear, do you care to respond to that answer?
Yeah, I'm gonna respond to that and a few other things. Thank you for letting me borrow Mr. Gott's submission, and now that the code officer's back, I will say I think it's more formal for the applicant not to be provided with copies of documents there, okay? So, there's a difference, as we said at the very beginning of this meeting, between when we were talking about where this fence was located down near 102. There's a difference between a road, paved strip, and the right-of-way, okay? Your ordinance talks about a right-of-way, not a road. No, maybe, I don't concede, our engineer may have said that we can't widen that driveway. I wouldn't concede that point. We're trying to not have to face that issue. Thought it best to explain to you our rationale for keeping what's in place there. But a right-of-way is just the width within which you might do whatever you've been given a right to do. In the case of a road, pave it, drive over it, build shoulders, build ditches, etc. The road is the road, so the right-of-way is really not in play here. You don't have a right-of-way over land that you own. You don't have easements over your own land, you own the land. So the right-of-way is really not even an applicable standard here. But I would maintain that we could easily meet a 30-foot right-of-way width because we own the entire front of the property. So
Yeah, as long as cars drive on the lawn, correct?
has nothing to do with the right-of-way.
Okay.
It doesn't. So, with respect to the widening down near the road where we need DEP approval, I'd ask you this. The DEP is doing some work in the next year or so. They're gonna put riprap in along that way. And if they came along and decided that they were gonna widen the shoulder on Route 102, I'd be hard pressed to think that the town is gonna tell them, no, you can't do that, that's Madeline Brogdon's property. That's the same sort of argument that an ordinance that says you can use an existing trail or road doesn't include a driveway. My point is, that is for all intent and purposes the DOT's land, and has been since they established that right of way a century ago. And we are not widening any property that we really have any interest in, any meaningful interest in, which is why we need the DOT's approval in order to widen its shoulder, which is what we're doing. It's within their right of way. I don't think that it is the portion of property that is burdened by any limitations contained in your shoreline zoning ordinance concerning using existing driveways, roads, and trails. This is an interesting file made by Mr. Gott. I'm just gonna point out my observation, and then I'm gonna ask Mr. Witham, who's familiar with this property, to tell you how long the turnout at the top of the hill, the top of the, near the road, excuse me, near the house, has been there.
You're talking about what Mr. Pelleggi said was done illegally in April.
Yes, that's how he described it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, right. More directly, I'm looking at, the pages aren't numbered, but it's a page with two pictures on it at the top of the page that's prior to 2021.
With all the deer.
With all the deer in there,
Yeah.
and there are arrows pointing to original driveway before widening. That area that is sort of pale in color, there's a little dog sitting, you can see the dog sitting on the edge of there. That is impervious area and has been for decades. Those are actually paving stones that you can see there, I believe. But Mr. Witham, would you come up here and tell the board what the condition of that property has been in the area of what appears to be a Volkswagen in this particular photo?
This has been, this is where Madeline has parked her cars forever. All I did was take up the cracked pavers and I fixed her steps for her. And we just put rocks. We didn't change anything. So the line is exactly the same. You see the road pathway behind here? That's exactly as it is today. Just that this, I added steps for her to see because it was a drop off. And these pavers were cracked, and I just put rocks. But we didn't change, the shape of it or.
So you're saying where the car is parked is a place that cars travel or parked or ingress, egress with a
Yeah,
Volkswagen?
Right there, that's the exact same spot.
You lifted up pavers, you said?
Cracked pavers.
Cracked
And I
pavers.
added-
Mark, I have one in
added
color.
steps.
And what was between the pavers? It looks like grass.
Yeah, it's, you see, this is a walkway.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
I
And so
just-
like
I just
inside
went onto
there.
there and just.
Sure,
put
right.
rocks.
But before you did all that, prior to 2021, there was I mean, you choose sort of parking on
There
the
was
grass. There was rocks with grass around
and
it.
pavers. And that, and grass grew in.
And the grass grew around and,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just made it safe for everybody to step.
Sure,
out.
yeah, that makes sense. I just wanted to, it's a black and white picture, so, but
Yeah,
I'm
so
assuming that that's grass.
It is grass.
It looks like the same
It's all
color as.
pavers.
Yeah.
And they were, like I said, I ripped them up and it was wrong.
In furtherance to Mr. Witham's questions, can I get a copy of this after the meeting?
Yep. Do you need this one? Or you can keep that one then.
Thank you. Response to the colloquy between Mr. Witham and Mr. Pileggi regarding anticipated traffic loads. I think our engineers have provided you with their estimate of traffic at peak hours, 11 trips. A trip is in, 1, out, 2. 12, thank you, I thought it was 11. 12 peak trips. Not gonna happen very often, I would say. And in the off chance that it does, we think we have provided for adequate room at the mouth of the driveway. And we have the spot at the top that we've just been discussing where people can view incoming traffic. As Mr. Pileggi mentions, perhaps the erection of the fence will impede a view from the person at the top of the driveway to vehicles that might be coming from the left. Yes, it might, granted. But I think there's also been discussion, and I think it is probably borne out by empirical evidence, that the vast majority of the traffic is going to be coming from the north. It's going to be coming down 102 from this direction toward the property and turning in. Plainly visible to anybody at the top of the hill. So I think that the devil's in the detail. Is one, it's not going to be very often that two cars are going to meet, and two, it's going to be even less often that vehicles coming from the southerly direction or easterly direction are going to be turning up the hill and perhaps running into somebody coming out who couldn't see them. I don't know. We didn't, and quite candidly, we didn't analyze whether the fence that we're going to install is going to cause a problem there or not. But if it does, it's going to be rare for that to happen.
Has anyone gone to you, John, about the alleged widening of the driveway and made a complaint of any sort? I'm just curious. No? Okay.
Of course, nobody made any complaints about the illegal cabins that were there.
I was just curious. I mean, it is kind of it's a close call. I mean, I think that there were pavers there. You know, I kind of made the comment at the time that we mean where the cars parked. It was kind of joking, but it's because there was a car parked there. And it looks to me like that's where she kind of, I mean, it's not, there are pavers there. And there is a boundary that was always there that kind of, that looks like it was crushed rock or something.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So I'm digging into the definitions a little bit, and Mr. Bears suggested that a driveway and a road are sort of interchangeable. Our definitions definitely make it quite clear that they're not interchangeable. That a driveway, as Mr. Pileggi pointed out, serves a single family, 1 or 2 single family dwellings, or less. And a road is a route or track consisting of a bed of exposed mineral soil, gravel, asphalt, or other surfacing material constructed for or created by the repeated passage of motorized vehicles, excluding a driveway as defined.
Right.
And so it seems there's sort of a couple of pieces in there that I think are relevant. One of which has to do with it defines it as a bed of exposed mineral soil. And so it would show pretty clearly that like the exposed gravel driveway or old asphalt driveway, that's different from the parking area, and the parking area would not be part of that, would not have been considered part of the road because it's not exposed mineral soil, gravel, asphalt, or other surfaces. Well, I don't know, could you call it a surfacing material constructed for repeated passage of motorized vehicles? Probably good. It's pervious. Somebody's saying it's impervious, but it's actually pervious. There's grass growing there. You think it's,
Well, it was.
I'll look at the engineer who's,
It is a compacted gravel base underneath the grass that grew over the pavers that were there, so DEP would define that as impervious. Even if grass grew in, because of the lack of
Grows
maintenance,
in,
if it
right.
has impervious cover below it, it's
Below it.
impervious.
I'm not even sure that, that's interesting. I'm not sure it matters, but it is interesting. Because I think that, as evidenced by the car parked on that, it's a surface material constructed for the repeated passage of motorized vehicles. So that would imply that that portion has been existing.
Mr. Wilson, I just want to clarify one thing if I can. When I say there's no difference between a driveway and a road, it's when, what I'm trying to explain to you is that you can call it a road. We meet the definitional, the standards of a road. We provide you with that information. So we meet the standards of a road. If a driveway, by your definition, is only to access residential property, then this isn't a driveway, it's a road. That's fine.
Well,
That makes the argument a little bit easier that it's allowed in the CFMA zone.
so that, I think what ends up mattering quite a lot is, it was a driveway, you know, it's currently a driveway, right? It's serving a residence.
But it fits your definition of a road.
No, it doesn't.
Why doesn't it?
Because our definition of a road excludes a driveway as defined.
But
As driveway is defined, serves a one or two family dwelling, which is what this,
you have you have standards for a road in your land use ordinance. You have a copy of the page right there.
that's right, it meets the standards of a road, but not the definition. You understand the difference, like,
I understand where you're going, but I'm simply saying that what exists there, may be currently used as a driveway, it meets the definition of a road.
no. You just said it meets the standards of a road, and I agree with that.
And when you have a commercial, the thing that you travel over, I don't think is defined by the thing that you get to when you travel down it.
Sure, it is right here, it's on page 71 of 85.
Yeah, I understand that that's what the words indicate, I get that, I do. But what is on the face of the earth meets your definition of a road.
No, it doesn't. Our definition of a road excludes driveways.
What, if we came to you and there was nothing there, and we said we wanna build a campground back here,
Yeah,
you'd say, gotta build what, a driveway or a road?
a road.
And we'd say, okay, and we've shown you that what we have meets that definition. It meets the standards.
Okay, those are different things. Like, if we're gonna talk about semantics, let's get specific. And we're talking about I'm talking about definitions right now. I think it would,
So you're saying that the property could never be used for anything other than a residence, because a residence, as is there now, can only be accessed by a driveway, thereby forbidding the use of that property for anything other than residential use forever. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm saying that there's not an existing road on the property.
There is an existing road.
I'm not here to convince you. I'm not even here to convince the board.
understand that.
But I do want to, like, make sure that the
Well,
board
I guess
is
the
following
question
my
becomes,
logic.
if you think you need a road, can that driveway be, by virtue of the use of the land, appropriately transitioned to a road?
Yes, but I don't think it would qualify as an existing road. And so it's,
It's that change of use.
You have to keep in mind the commercial fisheries maritime activity zone that it goes through,
Right.
and the fact that there are basically some concerns about non-conforming use through there.
if it was, I mean, and certainly our ordinance says that if there's an existing road, that can continue to serve as an existing road.
Or trail.
But does not say that you can build a new road, or, which I think, and this is a question, is a change of use the same thing as building something new?
It's changing the use of the property.
Or,
It could be from building something new, it could be for other, yeah.
yeah,
But they would have to comply with the new use.
I'm trying to remember, what was that DOT, what was that letter from?
early on, we had a letter from
The letter
the
was-
attorney, the AG.
The AG's office, that letter was specifically said road. The question that
If it's an
the
existing road,
they were asked, the AG's office was asked, was road.
yes.
And we know that the answer you get often depends on the question you ask.
Does anyone have that?
Yeah, I think it might be in the, here, I mean, that,
I don't think it's, I just looked through there and I couldn't find that. Not there, but I don't remember it being early on.
it's on, well, it's in here. It's in
It is, you
here.
found it, okay.
But,
Oh, it's in the binder?
it's in the binder, but nothing is, numbered, so, once again,
But it's after the deed?
after the deed, yes. I think that's the deed, yeah. Quick
Yeah.
claim deed, yeah,
Got
right
it.
after that.
Proposes to utilize a pre-existing driveway.
No, it does say driveway.
It's a driveway. Use the term roadway interchangeably.
As the application does propose constructing a road, but merely utilize a pre-existing driveway, no permit is required.
At the end, they say because vehicular traffic on existing roads and trails. Okay, so what's a trail? To me, it's a hiking trail, but apparently Mr. Bear is arguing that it's wider than that. Definition's wider than that.
Land use table right above the one we've been discussing, number 2, September 1, it refers to hiking and things of that nature.
I'm sorry, what?
You and I had a discussion about the land use table.
Yes.
And motorized vehicular traffic on existing roads and trails being a permissible use. I just pointing out to you that the use above that says non-intensive recreational uses not requiring structures such as hunting, fishing, and hiking. I think hiking implies trails. I don't believe that. Anyway, I think that the letter is quite helpful. I'm glad we had a chance to circle back to it.
Want to take some more time to think about this, apparently? Mr. Larson, I have a question for you. Let's forget about campgrounds. Let's just talk about commercial businesses, okay? If someone came to you with an application for a new business and they wanted to know about road and driveway opening standards, and they look here, minimum right of way 30 feet, what does that say to you? It what?
They would be required to have a 30-foot wide right of way.
Okay, and how are you defining the right of way? I mean, in listening to Mr. Bear, basically their driveway could be 3 feet wide and they still have 30 feet of right of way, minimum right of way.
Doesn't say how wide the road has to be. So then you gotta know the difference between what's existing and what's new.
You have to go by what's existing and what's new.
There might be an existing road that
Okay,
18 feet long.
okay.
Right of way is only 20 feet wide.
Okay,
So then, anything that's commercial has to go before the planning board. So the planning board would have to make the determination whether that right of way of 20 feet meets the standards.
so should the right of way be shown on the plan? Or just the driveway itself?
Right of way. The right of way would be the whole width of the lot.
It's what?
Right of way could be described as the whole width of the lot if you wanted to.
Or if you were,
What are you poking around at, this here?
No, just in the design standards for it.
Right.
Yeah, the
so if
right
you're
of way
running
to
your
me.
driveway along your property line, I mean, it's gotta be within, a 6-foot buffer, or setback, but you could have it along your property line. You would need to have a right of way into your neighbor's property. And that you probably have to show, and you get an easement and you write that up, I would imagine.
That's just not correct.
Well,
If you have a 30-foot wide right of way, you can put your travel way anywhere within that width. So in your example, you build on your own property line, you've got to be 30 feet into your own property and build your driveway, road, whatever you want to call it, within that 30 feet. A lot of roads aren't in the center of the right of way when they're laid out, and they're for a reason, because there might be a big rock and you're gonna go around it. There might be a big gully and you're gonna go around it, so, but you have to stay within the width you could grant.
We want a motion on this, or are we still thinking?
Well, it's a little
Getting late around,
tricky to figure out, like,
I'll tell you, one of my concerns is they still have not gotten any answer from the MDOT.
Right, so if,
Okay,
it would have to be contingent.
that would have to be
I
conditional.
mean, if we end up,
Yeah, contingent on them getting it. And then-
if that is part of the solution, or the part of the. I guess what I'm stumbling around with is that, we're looking at roads, driveways, and driveway opening standards. Is this the right time to talk about CFMA? If it's permitted use? Maybe.
Well, if the road goes through, the driveway goes through the CMFA zone, yeah, which it does, and
Okay.
it has to be
Then-
addressed at some point. If you remember the original application, one of the reasons
Yeah.
was we denied it was because of this.
Well, I'll take a stab at a motion.
But hold on, I just want to make sure
Okay.
everybody's ready
Yeah,
to,
oh, right, yeah, sure, we can.
There is a, later on, we are gonna have to tackle it again. On page, 8G, right?
Okay, yep, that's definitely, that seems like the. And so, we're here in paragraph I.
well, under G, it says will not adversely affect existing commercial fishing or maritime activities. There,
Right.
none of those exist now, so.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I guess just to be like transparent with the board, I think that I'm finding myself satisfied with the queuing plan. I don't think that the queuing is an issue. I don't think that expanding the driveway, I think that like the driveway has always been that shape where the parking area is. And it has a little bit of a different surface now than it used to, but it's always been part of the driveway that is now being converted to a road. And that conversion is not permitted in our land use standard. I mean, I haven't figured out which part to say that, but I just wanted to talk it through.
The queuing plan, okay, it relies on the people staying at the campground to actually comply with that.
That's right.
And there's nothing that ensures their compliance, correct?
Correct.
It's all volunteer.
But I think the same thing could be,
And it's
You can make
easy
it
to
simple.
miss
I mean,
a sign.
it's a volunteer, you voluntarily don't run into people when you go down the road too, though, Mark, right?
I mean, somebody could decide to just park
It
in the front
depends
driveway. like-
what state you're in and how many,
I'll tell you, I'm on the first 2 points, I'm with you, and on the
Yeah.
third, I'm still up, I don't know,
Yeah.
but that is the
Pretty
question. But what it would mean, what it would mean is that land is basically, unless you had another way to get into it.
Unless there was an
you
existing, right, I mean, you're right, for this parcel of land, it would mean that
couldn't- It's basically landlocked, you can't do
you
it.
can use it for residential purposes. You
But
can't,
I don't know, I'm not ready to say that, that's kind of a pretty.
which is what we said the last time. And then they
But
got
did we
this
say
AG's
that? Did we got the,
Yeah.
and then they got the AG's letter?
Yep.
Yeah.
and I'm not
A
sure
year
the
later
AG
or more later.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm not sure
whatever
the
it was,
AG's
yeah,
letter-
get to
yeah.
the
I mean,
definitions.
Mr. Barrow was not involved in the first,
I mean, I will say with the
Iteration, yeah.
queuing, frankly, I don't think that, I don't think we should read into the, ordinance that, it's a strict, like, you can never have a
Have to wait.
situation, we have to wait at least, I mean, that's just gonna happen, but I don't think it's gonna happen that much. And I think that I just don't think that's a material enough safety issue that that I could say that that's gonna, kill the project. And I think the driveway or road, or whatever you wanna call it, is manageable. But it's interesting to me, whether you can, whether now a change in use
Change in use.
can of a property in one zone,
Right.
then changes a change in use in another zone.
Right, I mean,
Whether you
yeah,
can do that.
right, that it's the current use as a dwelling that defines what, or like, that determines what the object is, that makes it a driveway, and changing that to a campground, change it from a driveway to a road. And so it's not currently a road. That's the tricky part, like, that's that line in the definition that excludes driveways.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay.
I was hoping somebody else would, but I'll do it. I'm gonna make a motion that the roads, driveways, and driveway opening standards has not been met because under Article 7E, it would be an expansion of a non-conforming use which is prohibited.
What are you citing? The Article 7E?
7E.
You caught me off guard with that one. But, I mean, I'm almost ready to second it, but or maybe I can second it and then we can discuss it. I'll second it.
Okay, motion second on the table that the roads, driveways, and driveway opening standards has not been met because under Article 7E, it would be an expansion of a non-conforming use which is prohibited.
Discussion. I just found 7E, which is
What
page
page?
56 of 85.
Page 15, I think.
Oh, page
Wait,
15.
is it 15?
56. 7E?
Wait, oh, no, I look at the wrong, yeah, you're right. I was looking at my wrong note here, the wrong note. What page do you have?
56.
56. Yep.
This is the May 9th, 2022 version.
May 5th, 2021.
Is that what the version we're using?
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, you're probably pretty close on the May 9th version, but it's, I don't think you changed that very. You're suggesting that it's a non-conforming road right now that is being expanded? What is,
The use of that driveway for a campground is non-conforming, a commercial use.
okay. And so, I just wanna make sure that we're citing the right paragraph. It's a non-conforming use of the driveway.
As Mr. Pelleggi pointed out, at one time that was an inn, and that was conforming use. The inn ceased to exist, and the owner then had up to a year to get that use continued.
Yeah,
But they
right.
didn't do that, so it then slipped into non-conformity.
Except it's not an inn right now, it's not a commercial,
Heck, no, it's nothing commercial, it's a hut residence.
so I don't think it's
It's why it's a
non-conforming.
driveway, like you said.
It's a, so I guess I don't think there's a non-conforming use right now.
It would be if we approved this, is what I'm
Would it be a
saying.
change of use? I guess I'm just wondering, like, I don't think that the expansion of non-conforming use is
Well-
right. If it was an operational inn or an operational campground that was expanding, that would be, then, but I don't think we're in the right place in the ordinance, because it's not a non-conforming use right now. We're talking, about a change of use from residential to commercial.
So under 3, change of use.
Yes.
But even that
But
talks
it's
about
not
an
existing
existing non-conforming
non-conforming.
use.
Yeah.
But it's not an existing non-conforming use.
You can't have a residence in the CFMA zone. I'm sorry.
Hold- Mr. Plague, do you want to speak? I'll allow it.
No, never mind. I'm gonna-
Please,
I'll
yeah.
let the board deliberate.
I think it's probably best if we find our way there, wherever there is.
I agree, I apologize for speaking.
It's fine. Yeah. So just to try to stay focused on this nonconformity issue, I think that the way the motion stands right now, I would vote against it, because it seems to me that it doesn't apply, that that the project it's currently conforming, and they're proposing a change of use. So it's not a expansion.
It's not a conforming use now, it's a non-conforming, it's an allowable non-conforming use right now for the residents.
The residence
Yeah, the house,
is not,
where she lives.
and that's not conforming?
It's a residence, so it is, right now.
You saying you couldn't have a driveway in the commercial fishery zone, period, to get to your house? That'd be
It's an allowable use.
so it's not non-conforming, it's allowable.
No, it's not allowed. 1 and 2 family residential, including driveways, is not allowed in the CFMA zone.
Where's that?
Where
That's
do you
in the table of land uses, page 22 of 85.
Page what?
22, paragraph 13A. And so,
Well, but that's, so 13A is a structure, and it's a structure. Right.
but it doesn't say including driveways?
Yeah, but the structure's not in that zone.
Correct.
Right.
Look at the footnote on the next page, 13. Only one residential dwelling unit allowed as an accessory to principal. Oh, no, that's different, sorry.
I mean, I just think it's a very unique circumstance.
This whole project's pretty unique.
And that's why they went to the state. And I suspect the Attorney General was like, ah. Yeah, because the alternative would be to conclude that
Have a motion on the table. More discussion?
yeah, this is a legal issue. It's just a purely, it's really like, I feel like we need to go to our lawyer and, I don't, I wouldn't vote for that motion. I wouldn't vote for that one. It's not clear to me that the letter from, the AAG, isn't a home run for me either.
Right.
But it's not, I'm not, Approve land use tables, use number 2. On existing roads and trails. So you'd have to conclude that doesn't apply, because it's a driveway.
Right. This is not an existing road. And I think I'm finding myself disagreeing with the AAG, which is an uncomfortable place to sit, but.
Well, I also, you know, sometimes you have to, you have to take what you have, recognizing that the language is not always precise and interpreted and, you know, so you get to a reasonable result. I'm trying to understand what, yeah, you know, I appreciate Mr. Pelleggi's comment about preserving the, you know, history, maritime.
Activity or maritime culture.
I mean, as a practical matter, it doesn't really, I'm not sure, you know, the way the road is there, I mean, yeah, but it's a tough one.
I have a different motion to make, if, depending on how this one resolves. If that helps us. vote.
Well, I guess you could tell us what you might,
I would have a similar, I think my motion would be around, basically that the roads, driveways, opening standards is not met because there's not an existing road. And so there's nothing, like, that the new road is not a permitted use in the CFMA zone.
so you're avoiding the non-conformance issue?
Right, I don't think that the non-conformance is relevant. I think it has more to do with, is there a road or is there not a road? Right now, and that there's not a road right now because of the driveway.
If I amended my motion to include that along with the other thing, would you be more willing?
Yeah?
I mean, what's interesting to me is that, you know, it does, that number 2, what the AG cited though, it does allow roads through the CFMA zone, so long as they're existing, I get
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, would,
But what Russell's
I'm
saying
trying
is
to
a
think,
driveway,
if
not a
it said,
road.
if it said driveways there though, would it, I mean, you still end up with a weird, because it's still not, as soon as you, because it is a road, it would be, as soon as, if we were if they were to move forward to the project, it becomes a road.
That's right.
Right. And so, that is, I mean, it is permitted if it's existing. And it says trails, it's so bizarre.
I don't know what that.
No, well, they would never say driveways because, again, it all boils down to the fact that it's because it's in 2 zones. You have a structure in one and a driveway that goes across another. It's just a very unique circumstance. Yeah. And I actually don't think
The structure's in part of the
part of it is,
commercial
yeah.
fisheries,
Yep.
maritime activities, so
Yep.
It's all,
if I remember. It all is, or-
But the use is not, the use we're talking about is not, right? So I mean, that's my point.
the structure's all in.
Yeah, but the use we're talking about is not,
You're
right,
exactly
right. And that's what creates a very unique situation, I think. Commercial is permissible in the CFMA, right? Planning board. You know, it doesn't say, like, there's no, like. Road construction. You know, under like, line 24, under the land use for road construction,
Says
under,
no.
under CFMA, it says
CF
PB,
15.
right? Or,
Right, so if this was a functionally water dependent use, or use of accessory to such water dependent uses, then that would be much more straightforward. We could build a road through a CFMA zone to access the boatyard. But
Yeah,
this is actually a campground.
right, it's-
And so,
yeah.
you know, which is,
right, and if you look at E, I'm going back to non-conforming uses
Sure,
here.
yep.
E3,
Okay.
change of use. An existing non-conforming use, okay? This is a driveway through the commercial fisheries maritime activity zone to
Yep.
serve a residence, right?
Yep.
Which you have already said is a non-conforming use, right?
I'm with you now.
Okay, maybe
I'm-
change to another non-conforming use, provided that the proposed use has no greater adverse impact on the subject and adjacent properties and resources. And it goes on, but that's the important part there. And you can't argue that this is not having a greater adverse impact on both the subject and adjacent properties.
I'm with you now. I'm there. Yep.
Can I ask why you think that the roads under number 24 are only relative to functionally water dependent use, because the uses in that zone include residential uses in fact.
Nope. CFMA does not permit residential.
Land use standards, CFMA, minimum lot area, residential, 40,000 square feet.
I'm looking at the table of land uses. Sorry.
I'm reading from another piece of the ordinance that refers to residences.
So I think that, okay, yeah, go ahead.
No,
I didn't know you were asking.
I don't believe when you look down the CFMA list that those uses that you see yes next to, or CEO or planning board are all water dependent uses.
But for road construction is planning board with the footnote 15, which is for the functionally water dependent uses. That's how I got that. That's where I got there.
Oh,
I got there.
all right, thank you.
Yep. I'm satisfied, Mark. Thanks for talking me around in circles or wherever we ended up. I'm
Getting hungry, Lawson.
Well, where are we? Are we still at a motion and a?
we have a
Is
motion.
Scott's open? Can we send out for pizza?
I think they're closed now.
And I think the motion can stand as it is. I'm not sure.
Okay, okay. Any more discussion? Otherwise, I'm gonna call for a vote. Looks like Brett's doing something.
Yeah, I'm gonna be recalcitrant anyway. I think it's probably gonna be answered by a judge at some point. I think it's just a really close call.
Okay, motion on the table, now I even forgot the motion, to find that the roads, driveways, and driveway opening standards condition has not been met because under Article 7E, it would be an expansion of a non-conforming use which is prohibited under that section. Okay, all in favor? All opposed? 3-1, Brett, okay.
But I do understand how you guys connect with the dots. Yeah, it's a close call.
It's tricky. It's super close call.
Okay, it's 9:20. We have to go through the rest of this?
Zip right through it.
And also attachment A, and then we have to revisit the
Oh, yeah.
other one.
Yes, then we have the findings of that.
Do you think,
I'm turning that into a pumpkin.
I've been going straight since 5 a.m. But you've seen how articulate I am at this point.
well, so any objections if we table this until our next meeting? Further,
I don't believe Mr. Plug and I can be here on the 29th.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Mount Desert Board of Appeals.
okay.
December 13th?
fine.
I don't know whether I can make it the 13th. I probably can. 13th. Is that what it is?
December 13th. We're green.
Oh, yeah, I can make it that, yeah. I'm thinking the week before. Okay. So what do you think? You want to do that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I think that, I mean, I love Beth's idea about breezing through it, but
I forgot we had this other whole thing.
Yeah.
over here.
yeah, it's not. There's no fast way to
Freezing through doesn't always work, unfortunately.
I'm finding
I
that
know,
out.
I know. We can click off a few of these real quickly if you want to do
Go
that.
to 9:30.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's click a few off.
Sounds great.
Septic waste disposal standards. I think we're okay here. If you, there's a septic,
Yeah, I was just trying
plan.
to.
Design.
It's in the, bound.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Copy, I believe.
Prepared by.
Breezing right through, aren't we?
Lynn Bell. I'll make a motion that the septic waste disposal standards have been met, per the subsurface wastewater disposal system, design prepared by William LaBelle Jr.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the septic waste disposal standards have been met, according to the subsurface wastewater disposal system application by William LaBelle. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, 4-0. Sign standards. We already know there's no sign, so it's not applicable.
I'll make a motion that the sign standards, are not applicable, because there's no sign proposed.
Second.
Motion second on the table that find the sign standards, condition is not applicable because there are no signs, in the plan. All in favor? 4-0. Soil standards. I think we've got this basically through the septic design and the stormwater management plan. Well, that's actually stormwater BM.
I'll make a motion that the soil standards, have been met, and I'll cite the soil, profile descriptions included in Mr. LaBelle's, application. Soil analysis.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the soil standards conditions have been met based on the soil descriptions in the LaBelle application or report.
Yeah.
All in favor? 4-0, okay. Stormwater runoff standards.
I'll make a motion that the stormwater runoff standards, have been met for the stormwater management report prepared by Lena Watt, and supported in the site plan and civil drawings.
Second.
Motion and second on the table to find the stormwater runoff standards have been met, for stated reason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 4-0. Water quality protection standards.
I'm getting stymied or stuck because this is all about wetland
Yes.
adjacency, which,
You think you want to wait till we have a clearer mind?
yeah,
Because it's almost
I
9:30.
can't, like,
Yeah,
I wanna make
I,
sure that I don't contradict what we decided last time, but also cite the right things and the synapses aren't firing fast.
okay, everybody in agreement?
Yeah, there's a lot to this one.
Yeah, okay.
Man-made ditches and
Adjacent versus contiguous, 100 feet, fresh water versus.
I'll take a motion to,
I'll make a motion to table, or to continue this at our December 13th meeting, to continue the review of findings of fact for the Pointy Head campground at our December 13th meeting, picking up with paragraph and water quality protection standards.
and what did we say, that was the 13th?
December 13th.
Some
Yeah.
campaign.
Yep.
It's not our next meeting.
No,
Yeah, I know, it's not our next
December
meeting,
13th
yeah,
meeting.
it's, yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion second on the table to continue deliberations on the Pointy Head campground site plan review until our December 13th meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, 4-0. Okay. Thanks, folks.
Make a motion to schedule our next meeting.
Yeah,
Going too fast?
yeah, no, I'm just double checking here, it's getting late,
I know.
that's my bedtime.
I think we're ready for that. I'll make a motion to set the date for our next meeting to be November 29th, 6 PM,
Right here.
here in the Harvey Kelly meeting room.
second.
Motion is second on the table to set the date for next meeting, November 29th, 6 PM, right here in the Harvey Kelly meeting room. All in favor? Okay. Motion to
I'll
adjourn?
make a motion to adjourn.
Motion and second on the table, all in favor?
I think we should discuss that.
Yeah.
Hear from our attorneys.
They'd like to hear, Dan, could we discuss whether we should adjourn?
No, I want to keep going.
Good work.
That's a day.
Yeah.
That's a day. I was up on, scaffolding, second floor scaffolding, shingling wall. Not really standing with the ground.
John, do you want me to turn the video off?
Steel hardwood.
The video, want me to turn it
Very
off?
different.
Oh,
Brain
we're
work.
turning it off, okay.
To be up there, hammer shingles, come here.
Very different weather too.
Yours on scaffolding yesterday, you probably would have blown off.
I was up there and I almost blew off.